IB Nation, what's going on? It is Ryan Roberts, Director of Recruiting here at IrishBreakdown.com, joined, of course, by Mr. Sean Davis, recruiting analyst for the site as well. This is the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. An exciting Monday, Sean. We have a crazy show lined up for you guys. For the first time in Recruiting Hour history, we're going to have two different interviews for you today. So we're going to kick things off in a couple minutes with Mr. Adon Shuler, who is 2023 safety commit out of Irvington High School in the state of New Jersey. So Jersey kid with got to interview him, which is always fun catching up with the Garden State folk. We'll talk a little bit about how things have been for him lately, his season. I know a lot of people are asking about the Ohio State offer that was extended to Adon Shuler recently. So I thought, why not? Last Thursday, Adon's like, yeah, man, I got some time. So he got to sit down with him and do the interview to, I think it's going to settle a little bit of the crowd as far as, the worry warts out there about Adon Shuler. So we'll kick it off with Adon. And then afterwards, we'll talk a little bit about some of the big time commits that put out stellar performances from the week. So Notre Dame commits, we'll be talking about Sean, we have a lot to talk about, man, because the skill position for the 2023 class especially was on par this week, man. Some incredible performances. So we'll get into that. And then I talked to you all a little bit about this, right? Like we had a awesome interview a couple weeks ago where, so what's happening here at Irish Breakdown is I am doing a series that is going to be called Recruits of the Past. So I think it's going to be kind of cool because I'm going to kind of talk about recruiting process when these particular Notre Dame greats were coming out of school. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about how things have changed, and we're going to kind of compare and contrast the recruiting processes from then and now. Of course, we had Bertrand Berry on a couple Mondays ago. Got Mr. Oscar McBride, former Notre Dame tight end, to come on with us today, Sean. He spent a couple years in the NFL with the Arizona Cardinals, of course, as well. Was a part of the 93 team that went 11-1 and finished second in the poll. Part of the Lou Holtz era, obviously. So we have two stellar interviews for you. We'll also have the recruiting talk in the middle, talking about what Jaden Greathouse and the folks were doing over the weekend. Dylan Edwards of the world, CJ Carr, some incredible performances. And then we'll end the show of today, as we always do, with a mailbag. It's something got a recruiting-centric feel to the mailbag, right? So if you want to start throwing in these recruiting questions, keep popping them in there because we already have double-digit things ready to go in the mailbag when we get there. So if you want to do the recruiting-centric, go for it. If you want to talk team, we can also do that. If you want to talk about random things, we can also do that. We both can talk if you all weren't sure of that at this point. And, Sean, it's going to be an exciting one today, man. But I know the folks out there, they're tired of hearing me and you talk, right? They want to hear the recruits, the future of the Notre Dame program and the past when the golden era of Notre Dame happened. So we're going to kick things off today with Mr. Adon Shuler, safety out of Irvington High School in state of New Jersey. And we're going to let him kind of cool some people's nerves out there. So without further ado, hit me with a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear Adon okay. Send me a sounds good, or you can hear whatever it is. Make sure the interview is playing for you all. But without further ado, Mr. Adon Shuler. Welcome to the Irish Breakdown podcast. We have a special player interview. Before we start, if you could please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this podcast. 5-star reviews are always appreciated on whatever podcast platform you frequent. Have with me today Mr. Adon Shuler, who is a 2023 safety out of Irvington High School right here in New Jersey. He's a Jersey guy like myself. Had to catch up with him and know they're having a nice season so far. He's coming off a 239-yard rushing performance playing quarterback last week for Irvington. And Don, appreciate you for hopping in, man. I guess the first question I should ask is just how's the season been going for you, man? I know you're playing a little more offense, doing some punt return stuff, obviously playing defense. How's everything been going for you guys in Irvington?
Yeah, good. New team from last year, a lot of young guys. So a lot of people had to step up and, what comes with that, a lot of older guys have to play bigger roles, and my older guys, myself as well. So,
yeah. Well, I saw, like I said, 10 carries for like 239 yards last game, and I even saw they let you throw the ball at least once, right? So, yeah. What's it like playing quarterback a little bit, man? I know it's more wildcat than traditional quarterback, but do you like the offensive touches, man? Getting the football in your hands?
Yeah, I feel like Pop Warner all over again. Just having fun. Just really having fun with it.
Yeah. Well, and I know that you guys came into the season obviously with a lot of expectations. You guys won the state championship last year, coming into your senior year. How has the season lived up to your expectations so far? Do you feel like there was a lot of pressure put on you before the season? Were you guys just back to business as usual? Just trying to get the vibe for what the senior year has been like so far.
I would say, it's always the pressure is always on Irvington. They expect us not to be able to do back to back, even win the state championship like we was last year. We was always counted out. So the main goal for my team and what I instilled in them was, we just gotta have the same mindset that we came into the last year with. Like, we're the underdogs no matter what. Like, we can't go in thinking that teams is not gonna play us to their best ability. I feel as though every time a team step against us, it's their Super Bowl. So we have to bring our A game.
Yeah, now you guys definitely have your target on your back, obviously. Now, Adon, I know that you won one state championship already. You're gunning for back-to-back, which I know would be a huge accomplishment in the school. I wanted to ask you about a different accomplishment that when I had your father, Don, on the podcast before, he talked a little bit about the fact that you are going to be graduating from Irvington early to enroll early at the University of Notre Dame. First student to ever graduate early, man. What's that feel like? I mean, to have all your accomplishments, but also see your hard work really pay off in the classroom and being able to be the first in your school's history to graduate early.
It's really huge. Like, I've been dreaming about that moment for a long time. Took a lot of hard work, a lot of extra classes, a lot of sacrifice for my parents, my coaches, my athletic director, the superintendent. So had to talk to a lot of people and make sure things was in place. But we handled the business, and I'll be out of here in January. So I'm really excited. It's real. It's a great experience for not just me, but for the kids that's going to do it after me. Like, it wasn't just about me. For the next whoever else does it next year or the year after that, it's going to be easier process for them. So that was really the biggest thing, making it easier for everybody else.
Well, it's going to be a quick transition, man. I know your dad's a tough guy, right? But are the parents starting to get a little sad? I mean, they only got a couple more months with you, man, and then you're out of here.
No, they try not to really say too much, a few things here and there, watching the games and stuff. But, they don't really want to say too much about me leaving. It's going to get them sad. So
I hear you, man. I hear you. Well, Adon, when I first got hired here at Irish Breakdown, it was in January, and you were already committed to the class. So I'm going to ask you a question that you asked a million times, but probably haven't asked it in a little bit. So take me through this a little bit, man, because obviously you have a lot of great offers, right? Alabama, Ohio State just offered you pretty recently, obviously Notre Dame. When you had the chance to make the decision and when you knew it was right, why ultimately was Notre Dame the best spot? Obviously, there were a lot of great teams that were coming after you.
I would say the relationship I built with the coaching staff, the community, the brotherhood that the program has had, the richness in the program was a huge factor. I kind of compare Notre Dame to my high school in the way it's ran. Like, it's a lot of culture in it. So I seen that in the coaches as well at Notre Dame. So I feel as though it's going to be easier transition for me to go there than for where I'm at now.
And how has that relationship developed, Adon? Because obviously when we committed to Notre Dame, Brian Kelly was still the coach. Obviously, coaching changed, but Marcus Freeman is already on staff. It's up to the head coach. I know Coach O'Leary was already on staff as well, so there wasn't a huge position change for you. But how has it been just kind of developing those relationships with some new coaches like Al Golden, perhaps, and to continue to build off of the relationships you already had with Coach Freeman and Coach O'Leary?
Yeah, I would say it's more of a personal relationship I have with each coach. Like, I could tell you right now something about each coach that, it'd be like, like a fun fact about them. So it's more of a personal relationship I have with them. I talk to Coach Free, Coach O'Leary, Coach Golden, a bunch of the coaches, like, not even in the position, that's not my position coach. I talk to them every week. So that's a huge thing in recruitment, not just recruitment, but like my family, they comfortable having conversations with them as well. So I feel that was really important and a difference in a coaching change.
Well, let me ask you this, man, because you just piqued my interest a little bit. You can defer if you want to, but can you give me a funny fact about Coach Freeman? I would love to hear a little tidbit. You got something?
What can I say about Coach Free?
Or any of the coaches. Maybe I'll just open it up. You can give me anything.
Coach O'Leary, he can't be my little brother in Madden, so That's a big one. He can't be my little brother in Madden, so that's a
Oh no! Oh, well,
funny
Coach
one.
O'Leary doesn't have any skills on the sticks, is what you're saying, man. He's a
He
little
got
lacking.
he got to get better. He got to get better.
Oh, that's so funny, man. Well, Adon, I know I wanted to ask this for you, and I did clear it with you before we started, so because I wanted to make sure that this wasn't a touchy subject. Obviously, I know that Ohio State has just offered recently, and you tweeted it out. Obviously, it's a big deal. I mean, Ohio State's a great program. Obviously, them showing the interest in you, I know was probably a big blessing for you. But Notre Dame fans, of course, on the Irish Breakdown message board and across Twitter space are freaking out. Oh no, I hope Adon isn't going anywhere. Just give me your thoughts on the Ohio State offer and, just kind of the latest with your recruitment, if there's any updates.
It's not really updates. I'm just really blessed for the opportunity. Each school it's a blessing. It's a lot of schools, and for me to pick Notre Dame was a huge blessing in itself, and for me and my family.
So it is safe to say that you are locked into Notre Dame. Just want to put it out in the universe.
Yeah, you could say that.
I love it, man. Love it. So, Adon, I know that Notre Dame has had a little bit of struggles this year. I mean, it's been well documented already. We're sitting at 3-3. There's been a couple hiccups, a couple positive moments. I mean, beating North Carolina was a great victory, obviously. Beating BYU out in Vegas was a really nice win, but it's been a little bit up and down. Have you been able to kind of maintain your optimism through the trials and tribulations? Like, has it shook your confidence at all in what they can accomplish, or have you kind of stood strong with it?
No, I wouldn't say that because it's coaching change. It's a lot of new faces, new people. As a coach, I'd like to say, I talked to Coach O'Leary about this and Coach Freak. It's growing pains. They're growing as a program, but it's still painful, to lose and to not come up on top all the time. So, especially with my class, I feel like my class going in will help the process a little faster. But as I said before, I felt as though the programs like my team, my high school, last year we went 0-1 for the first game, and we had a lot of growing pains that we had to get through, and I think they're going to get through and they're going to be fine. So,
yeah. Well, Adon, let me ask you about this because you guys are still a top 3 class in the 2022 and 2023, recruiting class. You have a lot of great players on both sides of the football. Obviously, I mean, you're talking about the wide receiver class that you guys have now with Braylon James and Jaden Greathouse and the offensive line group led by Charles Jagasaw, you and Peyton Bowen on the back end with Ben Minich and those cornerbacks, and a lot of great players, obviously, on both sides of the football. How special do you think that this 2023 group can be for Notre Dame? Because I know you just said, we feel like we're going to help the process a little quicker, but I feel like this could still be a very historic class for Notre Dame down the line.
Yes, no doubt. I feel as though with my class, with the great coaches that's there, I think there's no reason why we shouldn't win a national championship.
I love it. Short and sweet, man. And that's I know that is the goal, obviously, for Notre Dame moving forward. Well, I want to ask a little specific one about the safety group, right? Because like I said, I feel like are one of the most underrated players in high school football. Like the fact that you're not a consensus top 150 ranked recruit, I think is just bananas for people that have kind of seen your film. And what you're doing now on the offensive side of the football, I think is just kind of a testament to the athleticism you have. But you're joined with a couple other really talented safeties in the class, obviously. Peyton Bowen, who I was actually just watching on national television play Allen, which was pretty dope on ESPN.
Yeah, I was watching him too.
Yeah, he's playing a good game, man. Jackson Earl's got a couple touchdown passes. They look good so far, Geyer. So you got you two. Ben Minich is another talented safety, obviously out of Lakota West in Ohio. How special is this safety group, man? Because we talk about the trend that Notre Dame now has. I mean, they had Harrison Smith a little bit in the past, but Kyle Hamilton recently. Then you have Brandon Joseph this year, who's a really good football player. Now this 3-man safety class, I think that you guys can continue to obviously have a great tradition there at the safety position.
Yeah, I definitely do. With the right coaching, Coach O'Leary, the sky's the limit. We all could play different styles of safety. Like we're not just a prototypical safety, free and a strong. So we all could alternate, and I think that's going to make us very dangerous. Being able that we can play all three, so it's easier to disguise stuff. So yeah, I think that's going to be our biggest asset.
Yeah, well, that's my favorite thing about you, actually, man. Because I was going to ask the next question was kind of explain what makes you such a good football player. Like what type of safety are you? And the one thing that I love about your game, and I would love to hear your comment on it, is that you run the alley about as well as anyone that I've seen in this class, man. Like you play with a very physical style, and it seems like you just really love the game. Like that's what it appears like to me.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I feel as though I call myself the field general. I feel as though I'm the smartest person on the field. I watch hours of film. Film is like my TV. So I watch a lot of film. So it's easier. The game is slower for me. So when I see it and I know where the ball is going, I just attack, and I make a lot of plays doing that. So.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense, man. I mean the football IQ you play with, I think is just out of this world, to be honest. So let me ask you, because I'm assuming when you say you watch film, you probably watch a lot of yourself, but I'm assuming that you probably watch a lot of just regular football, maybe some NFL players. Are there any players that maybe you model your game after a little bit, or some personal favorites for you?
I would say, Derwin James is a huge Minka Fitzpatrick right out of Jersey. There's a few other great safeties. I'm an Eagles fan, so I feel as though we got the best DBs in NFL. So watch a lot of them. Not even just them, like corners as well, because everybody got different techniques and stuff that they learn and that everything. But I actually don't, like you said, I watch a lot of film. I watch film with myself, but like I don't dwell on the good plays about the bad plays, like or the tackles I missed or like when I overran the play. Like those are the plays I really focus on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let me ask you about the Eagles thing, man, because I'm in South Jersey. I'm right outside of Philly. I'm not an Eagles fan. My wife is one, though, so I have to watch them every Sunday. Sitting at 6-0, man. You think this is the time for the Eagles? Do you think they're gonna make a Super Bowl run this year? Seems like it.
Yeah, I definitely do. The last time we had a run like this, we won a Super Bowl, so we just got to keep it rolling. They don't believe in us.
It does. I hate to admit this as a Eagles hater, but it does seem eerily similar to 2017. It does.
Yeah,
I won't lie about that, but we'll see what happens, obviously. So, Adon, kind of like one of my last questions for you, man, is I talked about the safety group in 2023 and all your, the relationships you're building there. Talk to me about this class from a not football playing perspective, but from your bonding perspective, right? Because the great thing I love about football when I played and into coaching and all that type of stuff is that it really is a brotherhood, like you grow these great bonds, great friendships. What has it been like to develop these relationships with 22 other guys and to really, you guys got a group chat, you play video games, like how did you kind of been developing those relationships?
I'm kind of a little bit of it all. Everybody's from different places. I'm from Jersey, Payne's from Texas. There's a lot of people, Drake from Indiana. So it's a lot of different how do I say this? Like different personalities. Everybody has a different personality, but what we do, football brings us close. So we use that a lot to group and to bond with each other. We play the game with each other as well, like just different stuff. We all make jokes and have fun. Like it's not really just we playing football together. Like we make it about us building as a brotherhood and as a unit. So
yeah. Well, and I wanted to ask you because we're already more than halfway through your senior year, man, and I'm sure it's just kind of like blink of an eye and it's passing. How has it been? Just like because I remember when I was a senior, it was just like when I was a freshman, everybody told me, "Oh, it's not going to go it's going to go by fast. It's going to go by fast." Didn't believe them, and then you blink your eyes and you're a senior. How has that been? Just kind of like, have you had a moment where it's like, oh snap, I actually am a senior now. Like this is going quick, man.
Yeah, my senior day, it was a few weeks ago, and I'm like, I walk with my family, I'm like, dang, this like the season almost really over. So, just right now my goal is to prolong it as long as I can, is to make that championship run, to make the season go all the way to December. So that's really the goal. Like, but yeah, every day I think, like every time I go on the field with my bros, I just like, dang, this season almost over. Like, now we almost to the point where, that could be your last practice. So I don't want that to be mine. So, that's just the goal and the mindset that I'm going with for the rest of the season.
Yeah. And last question I have for you, Don. Obviously, we have a lot of great Notre Dame fans, a lot of diehard fans that frequent this channel that I know are excited to hear from you. I guess my last question is, knowing that your commitment is firm to Notre Dame and you're early enrolling and it's going to happen pretty soon here, I guess for people maybe that haven't seen you play a lot yet or just haven't keep up with recruiting a ton, what type of player in person should they expect from Adon Shuler when he gets on campus? Like what impact do you feel like you could have on the next level?
Definitely a person that works hard. Like everybody in the room is going to know that I'm a hard worker and I'm going to outwork them. Like just more so about not just football, just everything. Like, just not just being like I want to make sure I have a great GPA, helping the community, helping the team, and no matter which way I can. So that would be my biggest thing, like being a hard worker and somebody that everybody could be around and enjoy being around.
Bonus question. Do you know what you're majoring in at Notre Dame?
Marketing.
Nice. Smart kid, great football player, great football IQ. Again, joined by Adon Shuler, star safety, the 2023 class out of Irvington High School, Notre Dame commit. Adon, this was a pleasure, brother. I got Adon Shuler on. I got Adon Shuler on. I guess I need to just get mom next, but I really appreciate you, man, for taking a little bit of time today.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
I was on mute, but there you go. That is Adon Shuler, star safety out of Irvington, heading into Notre Dame, a part of the 2023 class. Sean, the first of our two awesome interviews for today, and I think that we need to spend a couple minutes, man, because everyone, when he was offered by Ohio State, started freaking out. They did. Like, let's call it what it is. It's the board is freaking out. The Twitter is freaking out. I straight up asked Adon before the interview started, like, do you want to talk about this? Do you not want to talk about this? I left it up to him, because I didn't want to make him uncomfortable, obviously, asking a question. And he said, oh, no, I'm locked in. You can ask it. Like, it's fine, type of thing. So want to ease people's minds out there as of right now, and I honestly don't see it changing. I mean, things can always change, but I personally do not see this one changing. Adon Shuler is 100% in with Notre Dame, 110%, whatever's higher than 100%. He's in, man. And like you heard, Sean, he is a great addition to this class. One of the best recruiters in the 2023 class among the recruits as well.
You know what? They might all have a future in coaching, right? The way Adon, Christian, Drake, the way they recruit other players and other targets, I can see them in coaching when they leave. But I'm most impressed about the young man's demeanor and the leader that he is. And you can tell when he speaks, he commands your attention and you want to listen to him. And that is something that is invaluable, but it's also something that you see in several of the other defensive commits that Notre Dame has in the 23 class, which makes this defensive class even more intriguing to see them finally come in and get on the field. Like, just them coming in and Matt Bayless getting his hands on them, and like who's going to try to outdo, how they're going to try to outwork one another, lift more than one another, do more reps, run faster than each other, like the competition. They're already, we talked about it previously, but they have this healthy competition with video games that is like, includes trash talking, and now they've included some of the 24 commits like Cam Williams and CJ Carr, and you just see the back and forth on Twitter and social media. You just get excited about the total package. And we know usually that's what you get anytime a young man chooses Notre Dame. He's going to be a well-rounded individual, and Adon Shuler doesn't fall short of that and that expectation at all.
Sean, you know what they say about Jersey guys, man. We breed greatness over here in the Garden State. Breed greatness.
Is that what they say about the Garden State?
That's what they say, man. Just like Notre Dame's starting to get some more Illinois guys, right? They're also starting to get some more New Jersey guys. I mean, think about what Notre Dame's done in New Jersey in the past, man, with guys like Quentin Nelson. Like they've done a pretty good job with those guys. And again, I was excited to get Adon on, Sean, because he is. There's a cliche thrown out there, like the heart and soul of a team, right? This kid could be one of those guys. Like you talked about what Drake Bowen could mean to this program. I think that's what Adon Shuler can mean to this program. Like, no matter what his role is on the team, and we could talk about that for days because, like he said, he's a player that could play strong safety, free safety. He's a too high kid. He could play. I think he could play rover as like a big nickel in certain situations, right? He's going to be a great special teamer, I'm sure. Just a lot of great attributes that he's going to bring to the table that I'm excited about. So that was our interview again.
Was he new? No, McGlinchey was a PA guy, right?
McGlinchey was a PA guy. Yeah, he was. He was like 25 minutes outside of South Jersey. Like he's right over the bridge in there, Pennsylvania. So he's very eastern, like southeastern PA, which is. But Yep, he was a southeastern guy, a southeastern PA guy. Will Fuller obviously came from Roman Catholic, which is like in the same ballpark as where Mike went. So yeah, they those are the southeastern guys, but we'll claim them. I can claim them. You know, we call them New Jersey guys if we want. That sounds good to me.
That's a good guy.
I got to take as many reinforcements as I can, man, because the taxes here in Jersey, the population density, there's a lot of negatives here in South Jersey, right? The swamplands, but I'll take what I can get here in Jersey, brother. I'll take what I can get. So that's one interview, Sean. Like I said, first ever podcast for the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour, where we're going to have 2 interviews for you today. And why wait for it? Why wait for it, Sean? We're going to welcome now to the podcast, we got Mr. Oscar McBride, who was a Notre Dame player from 1991 to 1994, part of some great teams under Lou Holtz. 18 receptions, 140 yards, 4 touchdowns during his career. Of course, a part of that 11-1 1993 team that I know a lot of people in this chat are going to get a little roundup about. They should have been the national champions that year, and also spent a couple years with the Arizona Rattlers. I'm sorry, Arizona Cardinals, who's not in the Arena League. Oscar McBride joining the show. Oscar, how are you, brother? Appreciate you for joining the show.
What's going on, Ryan? Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. Excited to be here. For sure.
Oh, absolutely, man. We're excited to have you, Oscar. Right? Like I said, we've been doing this kind of recruits from the past podcast, right? So Oscar, I don't know if you have earbuds because I'm hearing a little bit of feedback on my end. I don't know if you hear that too, Sean. It's like an echo. I don't know if you have that or not.
Yeah, I do have AirPods in. I mean, I can take them out and we can just go. I can just go speaker if that's better.
Yeah, sorry for that. I just hear the background, so I just want to make sure everyone hears this loudly and clear. That's my apologies, but
no, it's all good.
Awesome. So Oscar, you are the second person that we have had on this podcast now, a part of this series. We had Bertrand Berry that came on the show before as well. So you were second. I know you probably know Bertrand very, very well from your time at Notre Dame as well. So
that's my little brother, man. I had to take him under my wing when he came. So. Yeah,
you know what I wanted to reach out to you, Oscar, is when he came on the podcast, he mentioned you by name. He's like, Oscar was one of my guys when I got to Notre Dame. Like that was like uncle, right? Like he brought me under his wing. He taught me the ropes, all that good stuff. So I had to bring you.
For sure. He came in phenomenal talent, man. Bert was a sub 4.5 guy, kind of skinny outside linebacker. Unfortunately, had to deal with myself and Pete Kriplevich and Leon Wallace, so we had to toughen him up a little bit, but it worked out well for him. Heck of a player, man. He turned out to be. And his son in Phoenix right now, I'm telling you, this next generation, you got BY's son, you got Reggie Florima's son, who's at Northwestern playing really well. And now you got little B train coming up down the pipe, man. It's going to be exciting to see what happens in the next few years with these guys.
It's funny you say that, Oscar, because Sean, when we had Bertrand on, he was talking about his son a little bit, that he just moved to defensive line full time, and I actually watched his huddle highlight tape. So I'm like, all right, let me take a look, and you're not wrong, man. He's a chip off the old block, man. He can play little bit. So.
No doubt.
All right, well, Oscar, I of course want to talk a little bit about the Notre Dame career. Love to talk about the NFL side of things, obviously, but the main thing that we want to talk about is trying to kind of compare and contrast a little bit of what the past recruiting process looked to what we are now, right? Because we cover this obviously on a daily basis, and it is wild, some of the things that are happening nowadays. But I guess maybe a good place to start with us is that I know you're a Florida guy originally, and I would love to just kind of hear your background as a recruit coming out of the state of Florida. I think you're out of Chiefland High School, I believe, if I got that correct, Gainesville.
That's correct.
So if you could just take me through a little bit of your recruiting, why Notre Dame, just a little bit of the background when you were coming out of high school.
Sure. Well, yeah, as you mentioned, I'm a Florida boy, North Central Florida, stone's throw away from Gainesville. It was Gator country. There was a sprinkle of Seminole fans in there, a couple of University of Miami fans, but everybody was mostly Gators in that neck of the woods. We were coming off of the Charlie Pell era, and then Gary Darnell stepped in briefly. Funny thing, Gary Darnell was the interim head coach at the University of Florida when I was being recruited, and then ended up being the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame my freshman year. So I got to know Coach Darnell very well. But completely different now, man. It's funny. You'll appreciate this, Ryan. I was having a conversation with my uncle yesterday, who's in Tennessee. I mean, obviously, he's excited about what the Vols are doing out there. But we were talking about recruiting and how different it is right now. And just amazing how different the landscape is and what it means for a high school senior coming out right now. You've got obviously the transfer portal, which is busy, which is basically college free agency. You also have that additional COVID year. You have guys with medical hardships. You've got guys that are spending 6, 7 years in college now. And then, after that, coaches are looking to junior colleges. They're looking to those bounce backs. They're looking to those guys who weren't qualifiers for whatever reason. Maybe it's academic, maybe it was behavioral, whatever the case may be. But those guys are hungry, right? They want their shot. And then kind of last on the totem pole is the kid coming out of high school. And honestly, I don't want to say it cheapens it, but like the focus is now more on your 4-star, 5-star, big time recruits who can come in and play immediately and make an impact. There's really no place for your 2-star, 3-star developmental guy who's going to take a couple years to play. Because here's the situation, back in the day, coaches got 5 years and kind of got whittled down to 3 years, and nowadays it's 2 if you're lucky, depending on how your first year goes. I mean, we're already out of the honeymoon phase, with Coach Freeman, which is too bad, because we're struggling a little bit. But it's just there's just not that patience, man. We want it instantly, and I think it's made things much more difficult. For me, it was USA Today Athlete of the Year for the state of Florida, highly recruited, ended up coming to Notre Dame first. Committed to Notre Dame. I was on the same recruiting trip as Oliver Gibson and John Covington, Jerome Bettis, Tim Ruddy. We were all on the same trip. We all decided that we were going to come. I was going to Florida State. Jerome was talking about Michigan or Oklahoma. Oliver was going to Illinois. John Covington was going to Florida. And we all, obviously Tim Ruddy, a big 33 guy from Pennsylvania. I heard you guys talking before. He was going to Penn State. So we all decided that we were going to come to Notre Dame, and we made that commitment to each other before we got there, So nowadays it's not so much about the commitment as it is dollars and cents and playing time. And those are the two things that I think are mostly impacting the landscape of recruiting today.
Yeah. And I want to get your background, obviously, on a bunch of different topics here, Oscar. But let me ask you this. Yeah. One thing that I've noticed just kind of recovering recruiting now, and I want to hear how much different this layer of it is that nowadays when a player makes a verbal commitment to a program, it's something where you have to continue to follow it right up into signing day, because so many players now, Oscar, like they'll commit and they'll be like, nope, I'm still open to all options. I'm just like, well, why are you committed to a school then if that's how you are? But I mean, I have to think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like when you were going through the process, I would assume that as soon as you made your commitment that like, hey, this is where I'm going, that was over with. Am I wrong there? Am I out of line? Like, just curious.
It wasn't over. I mean, I still, the great thing about Notre Dame and Coach Holtz, he was like, hey, take your trips. We obviously want you here. We think you'd be a great fit for the University of Notre Dame and what we do. But take your trips. It's a once in a lifetime type experience. And I wasn't really for that, but I ended up taking Florida and Florida State. I'd grown up on Coach Bowden. I was a Seminole fan. And I went on my trip. Everybody knew I was committed. They did their normal recruiting process. And then at the end of the day, I was like, hey, I'm firm, and that's just kind of how it worked. It wasn't that, they gave up. Steve Spurrier, ball coach coming from Duke at the time, he wasn't going to give up. But I felt comfortable at Notre Dame. I felt home. It wasn't too big for me. I'm from a really small town. If you know anything about North Central Florida, there's a lot of swamp and a lot of small towns with 3-4 stoplights, and my town was one of them. So being at Notre Dame, and I think one of the things that really stood out to me there was a scrimmage for the Orange Bowl on my recruiting trip, and I remember Rocket coming up to me, and he and Ricky Waters, and I met Rocket really quickly, and Rocket said to me, "Hey, when you come, we're gonna win a national championship." And I kind of looked at my mom, and I was like, "That's Rocket Ismail. He just talked to me," kind of thing. And it made a big deal. Those guys were always around. Derek Brown was on my recruiting trip, had dinner with us. Tony Smith, Rodney Culver was there. Recruiting back then was, about the team and about being around the guys that had already established the culture that you were going into. It's sad to say now it's truly about dollars and cents. And are you going to get me on the field now, coach? Because if you're not going to get me on the field now, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what your program is like, I'm going somewhere else where they're going to put me on the field.
Yeah, that's incredible. You talk about that, and you talk about things that have changed. Now, when you think about the landscape of recruiting, I remember back in the day, just listening to you guys, listening, but hearing and reading about guys coming in for a big banquet week and being able to come in through all preparation.
Mm-hmm.
What's the challenge for Notre Dame now to be able to have the same appeal? Is it simply about winning and have those recognizable players once again to talk to recruits when they come to campus, or is there something that's going to have to shift in the near future to cause them to have consistent classes?
That's a great question, man, and it's loaded with all kinds of landmines. But what I would say is we've seen a paradigm shift just in college sports generally, just how things work and empowering the student athlete. I think what you have now is student athletes who understand their value a lot more than we did, because for us it was truly about winning and brotherhood and those things that sound kind of quirky and dumb nowadays. Because now the kids want the bag. They'll tell you, "Coach, I want a bag." I'm like, "Okay, well, you want a bag? I can put your name and your number on it. I got an equipment bag for you." But they're talking about, "I want a bag of money." So I don't think Notre Dame will lower its standards and its character for that type thing. It definitely won't lower its standards academically. And I think Coach Freeman has done a good job of securing some high level talent. I just think, to Ryan's point before, that follow up, that consistent touch, that consistent phone call. "Hey man, thinking about you, can't wait to get you here on campus," those types of things. It's just hard, man. There's so many different factors, weather, enrollment, things to do off campus, places to go. I mean, for us, going to Chicago wasn't a big deal because a lot of my brothers played in that area. We go home with them for the weekend. I remember going home with Brian Hamilton on weekends. It was great, spending time with him. Just now it's, kids want everything. And from my perspective, they're entitled to that because everything's asked of them when they get to their, specific program. So I don't know if we'll see that, it's about the loyalty and the brotherhood. I mean, maybe in some places you have that, but I think a lot of these kids are looking for what's coming next. Am I putting myself in the best possible situation to have a great college career and eventually have a shot at playing on the next level?
And you talk about the loyalty and brotherhood. My experience talking to players that just left Notre Dame, this is something they continue to talk about and talking about 30+ years where you are to these guys now matriculating to the NFL or into entrepreneurship. When you talk about that loyalty, brotherhood, is it a fair pitch to a young man in lieu of the bag, NIL? Like, what's the challenge? How is Oscar going to convey that to young man to say, look, I understand what the landscape is today. Stand NIL, promise you, look, this is going to more to you down the road.
Man, you got me on the ropes, man. I'm telling you, You know what? I would say honestly, I would use the same pitch Coach Holtz used for us. You know, you give me 4, I'll give you 40. And when he was talking about that 40 years, he wasn't just talking about him personally. Although, you know, I could pick up the phone right now and call Coach Holtz, he's going to answer. I think what is going to sell Notre Dame is its depth of community, its alumni base, its connections. You know, some of these colleges have great football programs, but beyond that immediate area of where that football program is, you don't have a lot of reach. You know, when you're talking about the University of Notre Dame, you're talking about an international network of millions of people, who, whether you know it or not, as a football player, they know you, right? And they know a lot of stuff about you. So, and I think anyone who attends the University of Notre Dame understands the challenges and understands, you know, what you have to go through just to go to class, just to, you know, the weather's never your friend. You know, teachers have obviously are assigning work as if their class is the only one you have. So there's a lot to it. There's a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of adversity that you have to go through. And I just think that the people who've come through that pipeline understand that. And there's some specific value placed on someone who not only was able to cut the mustard academically, but athletically. So I would say, I mean, yeah, even in light of NIL, in light of all the other opportunities these guys have today, you know, I'm in year 32 of my 40, and it's still going strong. You know, I mean, I'm on a group text with, you know, Aaron Taylor, Bryant Young, Jeff Burris, Clint Johnson, Lake Dawson, Brian Hamilton, Jermaine Holden, and we talk every day, every single day. And while I'm not discrediting the relationships and other programs, you know, it's not often that you're just on a group chat of brothers with an NFL Hall of Famer and a college Hall of Famer, an NFL GM, and a college defensive back coach and a high school head football coach. You just don't, you know what I mean? There's a little bit different swag to that. So yeah, 4 gets you 40, man. That's my recruiting trip.
Oscar, the one thing that I'm curious about, because obviously Notre Dame being a national brand, they recruit everywhere. I mean, we're talking about you from Florida. I mean, just in this cycle, they had kid from Arizona, kid from California, several kids from Texas. Like, they're recruiting all over the country. Like, this isn't just a Midwest thing, right? Like, Notre Dame is a national and international brand, if we're being completely honest, right? So I'm curious, being a kid that was a Florida guy originally, right? Going up to Notre Dame, maybe that first winter, right, where there's snow on the ground all the time. How did you adjust to the climate, man? Because I know it sounds silly, but like, that's a real thing to adjust to. It really is.
You know what? I'd be lying if I said I ever adjusted to it. You know, it's just one of those things you just know is coming, kind of like tax day. You know it's coming. You just try to prepare for it the best you can. I do remember first snowfall, freshman year. It was October. And, you know, we didn't have, you know, no frats, no sororities on campus. And my freshman year, we were paired with, you know, quote, normal students. So it wasn't 2 football players, roommates. So I had a roommate by the name of Chris Wade. Shout out, Chris, if you're listening, bro. Miss you, man. He's from Rhode Island. Chris is probably 5'5", probably 120 pounds soaking wet. You know, then there's me, you know, 6'4", at the time, probably 225. And, you know, we're roommates. And I remember getting up. I was in Flanner, which kind of dates me. It's now an administrative building. But I was in Flanner up on the 10th floor. Every morning I would get up and I would open the blinds, you know, because our room overlooked, you know, stepping courts and the field and all that stuff. And man, I remember opening the blinds and I looked, and as far as I could see was white. And I immediately closed the blinds and I went and got back in bed. My roommate says, "Hey man, what are you doing?" I'm like, "It's snowing out there, bro. Like, I'm gonna get back in bed." And he belly laughed at me, like full on belly laugh. He's like, "Oh man, come on. This is Notre Dame. They don't cancel class for snow, you know." And mind you, this is mid-October now. So at that moment, it was like, oh crap. I got to go to class in the snow, man. And like it had completely escaped me. I came up on my recruiting trip in December. Snow was everywhere, but they coaches kind of drive you around, drive you where you need to be, drive you up to the admin building. There's no walking, you know. I think they conveniently left out Notre Dame was a pedestrian campus, so that was never really discussed. But to say that I got used to it, nah, man. You don't get used to winters in South Bend. You just kind of grin and bear it. That's what it is. Especially during the off season, you got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, go over to Loftus or now the Goog and get your work in, and then you got to get to class. It just, whew, man, I'm myself some PTSD triggers going on right now, but it's definitely different, and getting used to it, not so much. You just know it's coming.
So when you talk about the greatest moment, I've asked several players, like, what's the one thing that sticks with you the most when you just think about Notre Dame and your time in Notre Dame? I've got answers from Friday practice in the stadium, or just walking around and just recognizing how many historic people have walked around the stadium, going to the games.
Yeah.
For you, McBride, what's the one thing when you think about it that always,
man,
in your mind?
I gotta say, the moment that really impacted me the most was freshman year, Michigan, first night game, Notre Dame history with the, portable lights that, were on the back of the truck, right? Rick Meyer's first start, coming out of the tunnel, and just electric. I just got goosebumps right now, man. It was crazy. Like the energy, the lights were just hitting off of our helmets, man. That shine with, not the waffle, not the shamrock, just that beautiful gold shine, man. And playing against Michigan, prime time Saturday night. That and probably Florida State are probably two of my biggest memories that just really impacted me a lot. Something I'll never forget.
Well, Oscar, we have a lot of fan questions in the chat that they wanted to throw some questions at you. So I'm going to hit those in a second. My last question for you is just kind of looking back on everything now with the obviously the hindsight that you have now. Is there some advice that you would give to a young Oscar McBride or a person that might be in your position now, a young athlete getting recruited that like you wish you knew back then, something that maybe would have helped you a lot?
You know what? I would say to a young Oscar, commit to the process. I had Derek Brown and Irv Smith in front of me, and I was content to wait my turn. Derek's an All-American, eventual first-round pick. Irv's honorable mention All-American, first-round pick. So I'm like, okay, I'm next up, and I didn't push. I wasn't looking to try to move past them or to be better than them. It was just I just kind of settled into my place, and I was comfortable with that. I would tell a young Oscar to go get it. I would tell them to work harder, to push those guys, because it's just going to make them better. It's going to make the team better. It would make me better in the long run. So I would say commit to the process. I had great coaches, obviously, playing for Coach Moore and Skip, and Jerry Schmidt was our strength and conditioning coach. We had the Breakfast Club, myself and Demetrius Dubose, him, Chris Matlock, and just it was incredible. But I still think I could have taken a little bit more advantage of what was there. So I would say, yeah, get into it, man. Get after it.
Love it. I love it. And right now, when adversity has kind of hit this program a little bit this year, I think that they every player, present and future, could do with that advice as well. So, Oscar, I wanted to open it up to some fan questions here if you have a few minutes.
Sure.
We have Anthony Solomon who said, Oscar, what are you doing today career-wise? So what have you kind of been up to lately?
Well, I have a consulting company. I do some leadership development, specifically with sports, with young people, making sure they understand what leadership is. One of the things that we kind of miss as coaches, we want leaders, but we don't spend the time to actually teach them what that is. We teach them how to block, we teach them how to tackle, we teach them how to lift, we teach them how to watch film, but somehow we magically think that leadership is something that's innate. So we try to give, specifically young people those leadership reps so they know what those are. I'm also the head coach at Murrieta Mesa High School. We're second in league right now. We've got our last league game on Friday, and then we're looking forward to our first playoff berth in about 5 years as a school. I just took over in February, so a lot of work that we've done, but still a lot of work to do. So still involved in sports, keeps me young, keeps me active. So that's what I'm doing now.
Love it. And Anthony, thank you so much for the question. We're going to jump to Robert Bishop, who says, Oscar, when you watch football, do you tend to lock in on the tight end and compare what you would have done in that situation? So you hyper-focus on the tight end position.
You know what? Actually, I don't, because no disrespect to Coach Holtz and our offense that we ran, I think we were all underutilized. We were guys who could run and catch and block, and we didn't get to do a lot of we did a lot of running. We ran a lot of decoy routes. We didn't get a lot of catches, a lot of balls thrown our way unless it was in the red zone or goal line. But I'm literally looking more at the scheme, what the offense is trying to take advantage of, and who that conflict player is. Looking at how the defense is trying to defend it. Our offense is a spread offense. We're up tempo, 10 personnel, 11 personnel, 12 personnel, some 20 personnel, tons of motion shifts. In practice, we try to run a play every 9-10 seconds. So I'm always looking for wrinkles, looking for, something that, can give us an advantage, not so much the tight end position. But to your question, I do notice a really good tight end when I see one. So I'm not locked in on them, but I do notice.
Well, it's a perfect segue for that conversation then, because Robert Bishop would like to know what Oscar thinks about the play of Michael Mayer, star tight end now for Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think Michael's a dude. I mean, there's no question that he's a dude. I just feel like you're limited when you're running your offense through the tight end. He catches a lot of passes, and he's deceptively quick. But I think we need to stretch the field a little bit more, take some of the pressure off of him. I think as a tight end, it's easier to key on, and it's easy to bracket. A tight end with a linebacker and a safety, depending on where you put them. But I think he does a good job. Could be a little better in the blocking game, but everybody doesn't get a chance to play for Joe Moore to learn how to block. But he's a first day draft guy in my book. I mean, I think he's one of the top 2 tight ends in the country. And he does a phenomenal job. I love his play. I think he's physical. I think he's nasty. Kind of reminds me of a Mark Bavaro type, with the ball in his hands. He's not afraid of contact. Catches the ball well with his hands. Doesn't let it get to his body. Knows how to use his body in traffic to shield himself the ball from the defender. I got nothing bad to say about him. He is phenomenal. Does a really good job.
Oscar, my roots are in the NFL draft sphere, so I'm probably going to use that Mark Bavaro comp at some point. Just letting you know that I'm stealing that from you, okay?
That's all good, man. It's all good.
We had Christopher Morgan who said, Oscar, how do you feel the NIL landscape is watering down the classic process and fun of being recruited to where young men are getting millions of dollars before starting in college development? I know we talked a little bit about this, Oscar, but maybe just a little more deep. I mean,
sure.
It's a weird balance, right? Because I'm all in favor of student athletes being able to make money off of their name, image, and likeness. I think that it's been something that should have been implemented in some fashion a long time ago at this point. But it is kind of making this process a little funky, right? There's a lot of layers to this question, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a gray area, right? I mean, let's call it what it is. The NFL drafts guys on potential, right? I mean, and they're getting drafted on their potential, not what they've necessarily done. I mean, you could be a great college player and be a bust in the NFL. We've seen that. And you could be a guy who, doesn't really play well in college and you end up being a superstar in the NFL. That's kind of how it works. I think the gray area is, where does this kind of cross that, amateur professional boundary, where you're giving a kid an NIL deal based on, his, you know, is he could be this great player, or he could, do these things. I mean, I'm looking at Tennessee right now, right? There's a quarterback out here in California who's committed to go to Tennessee. Kid signed an $8 million NIL deal. No disrespect to Nico, because I love the kid. I think he does a phenomenal job. Tennessee doesn't need him. They don't need him. So, like, what happens with that? Like, does that deal go to the wayside? Like, how is it restructured? Do they restructure it like an NFL contract? There's a lot of gray areas, and I think, as I was saying earlier, and talking to my uncle yesterday, where's the NC2A in all of this? They have been extremely silent, almost non-existent, which in my opinion, kind of points to their lack of power and authority. You're talking about a really blurred line between what's a professional athlete and what's an amateur athlete, and you're completely silent.
Yep.
And you're supposedly the governing body of this, this institution that is going in uncharted waters. I mean, are they behind closed doors coming up with regulations and rules? I mean, is there a cap? At least in the NFL, there's a cap. Is there an NIL cap? Like, what about the transfer portal? Can a team only sign a certain number of people? Can you only have so many kids from a team in the transfer portal? Like, there's none of this is being regulated. So it's literally, not to sound like a cliche, but it's like the Wild Wild West, man. Everybody's for himself.
Yes.
So, I think it's watered down, recruiting. Like I said before, if you're, the 2-star guy or the 3-star guy who's a really good player and can help some teams, it's probably going to be a little harder for you because you're not a 4-star or a 5-star, or a guy who's already been there in the portal, or a guy who's maybe bounced back from a Division I, or a guy who wasn't maybe a qualifier before, who's really hungry. So it's tough. I feel bad. I mean, my son was victim of that. He's a freshman now at Southern Utah, but he's a 3-star corner. Did a great job, all league in the Trinity League 2 years in a row. 4.2 GPA, and it's like, yeah, we're gonna sign this 24-year-old graduate to play corner for us, instead of bringing in the 17-year-old who might need a year or two to develop. That's just kind of the nature of the beast.
Well,
Yes.
and Oscar, we've talked about it a ton, because I remember 2 years ago, Western Kentucky signed like 24 graduates out of the transfer portal. Michigan State was right around like 20 as well. And I've talked about this a lot. It's like Michigan State took a huge step back this year. We know why. It's because you can't quick fix it all the time, right? Like, that's not sustainable. Like, you're not developing players at that point. You're trying to find quick fixes, which makes it really funky, really, really weird.
And as a coach, I mean, you still have to create a sustainable culture for your team. Like, you're taking guys who are leaving programs, most likely disgruntled if they're in the portal, unless they've graduated. If they're graduating seniors, okay, great. They stayed, they got their degree, they're looking for another opportunity. Different mindset. But you got a kid who's disgruntled because of playing time, or he feels like he was misled in some way by the coach or the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. He's not getting his touches, he's not playing. So in essence, you're inheriting someone else's headache. So you still need time for them to embrace the culture that you've established. And then sometimes that just doesn't happen. And it's hard to do that within just a few months. You need a full year. And unfortunately, they don't have it. That's all they have. They have that year left, and they're trying to, it's make or break, it's It's all about them. So that's difficult, really difficult. Man, I'm glad I'm coaching high school. Whew.
Is high school still the purest form of coaching?
I agree it is. But let me say this. It doesn't come without its own, challenges. Kids move a lot. Especially out here in Southern California, man. Like, I've known kids who've gone to 4 high schools in 4 years. I mean, it is, people are looking for the best opportunity, the best fit, and loyalty and commitment are unfortunately becoming things of the past. Next up, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
It's really too bad. It's bad for the sport. Now, let me say this. I love the parody I'm seeing though on Saturdays, because you can't say in good conscience, hey, TCU has no chance to beat Michigan. You can't say that. You can't say that.
Yeah.
There was a time you'd have said Marshall has no shot in beating Notre Dame. Can't say that. You know what I mean? Like, there's somebody. I think, what game was I was watching? Pittsburgh Louisville, right? Pittsburgh has a starting quarterback who's a transfer from USC.
Yep.
They got a starting safety that's a transfer from Notre Dame, right? Louisville's got a transfer from Alabama, like, and it's funny. The announcers have now gotten so conditioned. Before it was where you were from, right? Oscar McBride, Keith Jackson, big tight end out of Chiefland, Florida. Now it's like big tight end transfer from Auburn. It's so completely different. And I don't think we're really paying attention to those little details. That's basically saying we're accepting this as this is our college football landscape. This is the institution we're in. No changes in the foreseeable future, unfortunately. And our governing body, being the NC2A, is completely silent.
It's just such a headache. It's a headache, man. Like, there's just so many different ways to look at it. It's just like, oh my God. Because again, it is a cliche, the Wild West, right? But it is the Wild West right now. I mean, call it what it is, man. It's 100% what it is. I mean, Oscar, getting back to a little bit more of a positive comment here from Innate Rocket Science, said, Oscar, your group of incoming recruits, that was when you were coming out of high school, had some obvious similarities with what Notre Dame has got in the 2024 class, et cetera. At what moment did your group realize that they were destined to win a national championship, or that they were destined for greatness at Notre Dame, I should say?
I don't know. I think it was almost immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, Jerome Bettis started, Lake Dawson started, Greg Lane started, Tom Carter started as freshmen. Coach Holtz used to always say, a dog's not gonna wake up one day as a full-grown dog and decide to bite you. He's gonna bite you as a puppy. And we had puppies who came in and just took over. And that continued. Even Bobby Taylor, when he was there. And then then we became the super softs. That's all of us were contributing or starting as sophomores, and then junior year, senior year, just we played. All of us played for at least 3 or 4 years. So I think if you're looking at what's coming in, these are kids who can actually help us immediately. Which obviously we have a few holes we can shore up. My question is, are those athletes willing to stay just in case they're not ready? Aaron Taylor didn't play as a freshman. I didn't play as a freshman. Tim Ruddy didn't play as a freshman. Kevin McDougal didn't play, right? Bryant Young and Jim Flanagan were linebackers. They were on kickoff. Oliver Gibson didn't play as a freshman. You know what I mean? Pete Burchage didn't play. You know what I mean? The list goes on of all of us who didn't play, but who embraced the process and stayed and developed into, what we became. So I'd like to believe that, these kids will stick around, but the mindset is completely different. You know, kids nowadays seem to be less interested in building a championship team versus coming in and joining a championship team that's already intact. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You know, you see, you know, Alabama's your, you know, Clemson was, you know, everybody wanted to go to Clemson for a while when they were hot. You know, now Georgia's the hot spot. Everybody wants to go to Georgia. Pretty sure with what Josh Heupel's doing offensively, Tennessee's going to be a hot spot here for a little bit. You know what I mean? There's no, and don't get me wrong, it's not like we were rebuilding anything. You know, Notre Dame was top team in the country when we came in. But to keep that sustainable, you know, growth and development of players, you know, coming in, you know, so that there's no drop off between your ones and your twos or whatever the case may be, because you never win with your ones only. So it's a lot to consider. I'm hopeful and I'm cautiously optimistic.
Well, we have a couple of questions about the current team that might be an interesting to hit on. So Jay Henry asks, looking at how the team plays now, what do you want to see the team get back to from your playing days? Is there anything specifically that you would like to see them maybe make a change back to, or mentality, mindset, whatever?
I would say just physically dominating the game in the run game.
Yep.
You know, just, you know, white knuckle, you know, fire off the ball, punch him in the mouth, knock him in the dirt. You know, I got a million Holtzisms in my brain swimming around. You know, one of my favorites from Coach Holtz was, you know, we're going to hit him in the mouth. We're going to butt him in the mouth and knock him in the dirt from the time they get off the bus to the time they get back on. And that was our mentality. You know, we didn't need to be, you know, the most physical team in the country, but we were going to out-hit you if you showed up. You know, and that was it. I mean, our cadence was ready hit. Like, that was our mindset, you know. I think sometimes and I'm guilty of this as a coordinator, you know, we kind of fall in love with the sexy and the, you know, the RPOs and, you know, pulling the ball. And I honestly think there comes a point where you got to put your hand in the dirt, fire off the ball, and control the line of scrimmage. I'd like to see more of that. 25 is a difference maker, man. You know, maybe some old school counter.
Yeah.
You know, Mayer's a pretty decent blocker on the run. You know, maybe a wing counter with him, you know, in that gator position coming across. I think we run split zone out of that. We run some action off of that. But I don't know, just more hat on a hat, physical. I'm better than you, you know. I'd like to see some more of that.
Ryan, isn't it incredible when you look at the points per game average from those teams? They were still high 30s, mid 30s. Like, you don't have to throw the ball all over the field to score 35, 37, 38 points.
And they're running the option and grinding it out, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I didn't have, like, I didn't know anything about football like on the level that I know now as a 50-year-old, right? You know, as a 17-year-old kid. You know, I wasn't aware that we were running eye back and split back veer, right? I had no idea. You know, I'm looking at it now. I'm like, golly, we're over 500 yards of offense. We're one of the top 3 offenses in the country, and we threw the ball maybe 6 or 7 times a game when we had to. You know, otherwise, you know, have Jerome Bettis for 6, have Reggie Brooks for 6, have Rodney Culver for 7 or 8. You know, have Tony Brooks. Have some Ricky Waters sprinkled in there. Oh, here's Lee Beckham with the lazy leg. Have some Randy Kinder on the toss. Like, good luck. You know, like, we're going to run the ball. You know what we're going to do. Stop it.
Yeah.
And, you know, now it's we're going to out-scheme you. I want to show you how smart I am.
Right.
Sometimes less is more. Sometimes less is more, fellas.
It's so true, man. I mean, because Brian talks about it all the time when Rocket was on the team, right? Like, they would just put Rocket in the backfield, just like, just giving him a dive.
He played everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, slot, outside, tailback. And he wasn't just running toss. He was running power. You know, like, he was running counter. You know, like, you put the ball in the hands of your difference makers and let them do what they do. But I think, you know, having the offensive line coach that we have, who's one of the best in the business, perennially putting out linemen who are playing on the next level, gotta let the big dogs eat, man.
Yeah.
You gotta let them eat. You know, no disrespect to the passing game, but like, yeah, I feel like the old, it's not old, but this new thought of throwing the ball to set up the run, it's kind of like a football bat. It doesn't really exist. You know, run the ball, you have whatever you want. I'd like to see us be more physical.
Well, I mean, because I played linebacker in college, you know, and it was like when a team could run the ball on you, you felt helpless, man. It was like demoralizing, you know. You feel it's demoralizing. Like I can't
It's
stop
awesome.
the power right now. Like you just
Yeah.
there was this one school that we used to play in high school was the best team in South Jersey here on the level that I played at, and it was just like. In the first half, they would try to do all their spread stuff, right, Oscar? And you would shut them down. In the second half, they would just be like, all right, we're done. Double type power I, and then we're going to run right down your throat. Like, okay, can't do anything with this, man. I can't do it. You know, it's just demoralizing,
It's
man.
a mind. I think it's a mindset thing, though. Like, you know,
Yeah.
if you think about what, you know, one of the quotes that Coach Moore said, there's nothing like moving a man from point A to point B against his will. You know what I mean? And we thrived on that. We thrived. I mean, I remember being in the huddle with Aaron Taylor, and he's like, "Whoo, wait till y'all see this one on film, fellas!" Like we were relishing in, you know, what we did to them in the huddle, waiting for the next play. We weren't hand signaling, we weren't looking to the sideline. You know, we're in the huddle, laughing and talking to the defense. Hold on, I'll be right back. And we get the hold on, I'll get the play. I'll be right back. You know, like it was a different thing, and you know, I feel like we lost some of that with, even my own team. You know, we're spread up tempo. You know, we'll call freeze. Everybody's looking to the sideline. You know, it's like, dude, it's 3rd and 1. Get under center, reverse out, and let's run power. You know, let's just put our hands in the dirt and play football, man. You know,
That's great. And it's, Notre Dame fans, those are the biggest moments, right?
yeah,
Like from your era, like you got Florida State, you punched them in the mouth.
yeah.
Like we're not about to run around with you. We're about to line up and punch you in the mouth. Florida in the Sugar Bowl, we're about to line up and punch you in the mouth. Like we're not playing
Same with USC, right?
USC, yeah.
Yep. We were, let me say this. We had great athletes, but we played against some guys, man. Like that Florida State team, that 93 Florida State team was stacked with athletes, guys who played for years in the league. You know, you look at USC perennially, you know, they had guys who were just incredible players. Michigan State was always one of the most physical games of the year. Penn State, you know, and it didn't change. You know, we're going to run 14G, 15G, 18, 19G, 58, 59 wall, 44, 46 counter. We're going to run that stuff. And like, it didn't matter what they were in. It did not matter what they were in. It didn't matter what they showed. Plays called, we're going to run it. It's kind of how it worked.
Yeah, I talked to a couple of your teammates before, and they said, yeah, that Michigan game hit different, though, from a physicality standpoint.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And say everybody else, we could be
Man.
physical with, but we felt that Michigan game afterwards.
Yes, sir. Michigan, you felt. For me, it was Penn State. Penn State was, man, their linebackers were always really physical and well coached. And Michigan State, Michigan State was always physical too. Those Michigan boys always put it down. But you just don't like Michigan. Like, you got Michigan on, in the Midwest, and you got SC on the West Coast. You just don't like them,
Oscar, I always have to keep it professional on this channel, but I almost every podcast have an expletive in front of the word Michigan. So we'll just leave it at that. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, that's it. We had a question for you. I know you were talking about the physical game that you grew up with, that Notre Dame was instilled in. But Rob Tidoff asked, Oscar, would you have loved to play in the pass happy offenses that now present in the both college and the NFL with being a tight end with how they're utilized now?
It would have been fun. I probably wouldn't have been as productive. I mean, I wasn't a 4.6 guy, 4.7 guy. I would have liked to have seen Irv Smith in that type of offense. Irv was a 4.5 guy. Everything I learned from running routes, I learned from him and Skip. it would have been great to see that. But I think, I would have probably been a great 11 personnel, you know, complete tight end. I'm not gonna beat you on a lot of the posts and corners unless there's action. But I'm gonna set the edge, and we're gonna be able to run the football. And when I get a chance, I'm gonna catch it. So, pass happy, not so much, because that means I'm running a bunch of wind sprints for nothing. If I'm Michael Mayer and I know that the offense is running through me and I'm the first read with everything, that's a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we only have a couple more for you, Oscar. Again, we really appreciate the time. Wanted to get these last couple because they were nice enough to throw a super chat in here. So thank you so much to Wicked Bronco Production, who said, Oscar, what would you say is the issue with the Notre Dame offense right now? I have never understood why Notre Dame has never been able to really have a high-octane offense like teams who have less talent than us, such as a TCU, for instance.
Wow. Well, Wicked Bronco Productions, I appreciate your perspective. First of all, I wouldn't say that TCU has less talent. I wouldn't say that, especially with the parity brought on by the transfer portal. Here's what I would say is it starts with your quarterback. If you're running a high octane offense, the guy who touches the ball every single play has to be an imminent threat. And when I say imminent, that means he can go the distance or he can throw one on every single play. I don't know that we've had that since Malik Zaire. I mean, I could be wrong, but in my opinion, he was a legit dual threat quarterback. You had to watch out for him in the run. He took shots. It was unfortunate he got injured. I don't know. It starts with the quarterback, and we just haven't had that guy who's a threat. I mean, no disrespect to Drew Pine, but nobody's worried about him around the football. They're really not, and to a point, they're not really worried about him throwing the football because we're running everything through our tight end, which, as good as he is, still takes a little bit longer to develop, right? Versus a guy who's trying to take the top off the defense and a quarterback who's going to be able to hit him when he's doing so. I don't know. I don't really have an answer for that. All I can say is, you have to have dynamic players to put together a dynamic offense. And I think we've got some guys. We got to put it together. We got to gel.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like there was a shift away from. They had a run from Everett to Malik to Deshaun, where they were, and then on the Brandon, where you felt like, okay, they were going after those dual threat guys. I think Ian might have been on the back end of that, but then it seemed like they kind of shifted. I guess Brendan Clark was kind of that way from VA. He got injured, but you had Phil. It just seemed like they went away from those type of guys the more you got deeper into the previous regime and the end of their time here in Notre Dame. But yeah, I agree with you, Oscar.
I don't know. I feel like we still have these stereotypes of black quarterbacks versus white quarterbacks. It's like, okay, just because he's a black quarterback doesn't mean he just runs. And just because he's a white quarterback, that doesn't mean he just throws. If a guy's a dual threat, he's a dual threat.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why it's called a threat. And I just feel like there's so many guys out there. I mean, I don't know, but I guess maybe the question is for Coach Reese. What are you looking for, dude? What do you want? And I guess to Wicked Broncos Productions, like, the answer to that question rests with Coach Reese. Like, he knows what he needs for his offense. You have unlimited resources and availability at the University of Notre Dame. Go get what you need.
Yep. And that could be a whole podcast, and we'll probably make it a whole podcast. Last question.
You like that?
Oscar, we've been talking about it for the last few weeks. If we're being honest. Yeah. Last question. Again, for Wicked Bronco Production, who threw in another super chat. Wicked, appreciate you. Also, Oscar, what would you say if your quarterback, if you were Michael Mayer and you realize that teams are double teaming you and taking you away, but your quarterback refuses to look at other guys, Pine forces it to Mayer too much. So a little shady thrown at Drew Pine, but I have to read it because it's a super chat. So there it is.
We already discussed it. I mean, there's got to be other guys open. I don't know the reads. I don't know what he's supposed to look at. I don't know what Coach Reese is telling him. But I mean, if I'm a defensive coordinator for any other team, I'm not going to have 87 be one-on-one. I mean, that's basic football, right? Like if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm taking away your top weapon, and our top weapon offensively is 87. So if 87 is not available, although he's extremely reliable, he's going to be there. He's going to make every effort to make the play. At some point, you got to come off and to find somebody else. Look elsewhere to put the football. And I really believe that running the football takes some of the pressure off of Drew. Like I said, 25 is explosive, man. Every 25 that's worn that number, every guy's worn 25. Going back to Rocket, Randy Kinder, like these guys can go. So like, I don't know, get him some touches, man. Just keep it simple. I feel like if you're able to establish the run game, it kind of forces those guys who would be doubling, Michael Mayer to fit in the run game, and then you've got action off of that. Then you get a chance for some one-on-one matchups with him, which is a cheat code from my perspective. The kid's dynamic. But no shade on Drew, man. He's doing what he's being taught. He's doing what his coach is asking him to do, or at least trying to. So I don't know. Again, that's another question for Coach Reese, man. I'm just an innocent bystander.
Well, Oscar, we really appreciate you, man. This is a fantastic interview. We have so many people that want you to be have the open analyst position at Notre Dame, so they're going to hire you on the staff. Apparently, we had several of these too.
I wouldn't mind. As long as I get to leave after the season before it gets too cold.
Hey, well, someone needs to make a call to Notre Dame. Then someone in the chat that has that type of power, call up the staff and let's get it rolling.
Hey,
Again,
Ryan,
joined by Oscar McBride, former state. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Sean.
One quick thing: if you were facing a team that plays a 3-3-5, what were you and the offensive lineman thinking that week?
3-3-5, three down guys. You already know. Why you trying to set me up?
I'm just asking. Like, what would you
we're running power. We're running counter. Even if we're in shotgun, if we're in tray personnel, we're in tray. With tight end, two receivers, we're gonna read that backside in, maybe RPO. The solo side slant. We're gonna run the ball, man. 6-man box, we should win.
That's perfect.
5-man box should be a no-brainer.
That's perfect.
But 6-man box with Notre Dame's offensive line coach and their offensive line, yeah, come on. We RPO the backside if we have to, but we're going to run the rock. There's no doubt about it.
And I know Sean asked that because Notre Dame will be seeing a 3-3-5 against Syracuse this week. So love to throw in a question there.
You know what? It's never as basic as it seems. It just looks like, there's 6 guys, stacked on top of each other. On the snap of the ball, man, they move and they go and they all have different fits. My thing is, if I'm pin and pulling, it doesn't matter where you go because you're going to run into me, right? Because I'm blocking down and I'm pulling the other way. So I don't know. Like I said, I'll be watching just like everybody else. I'm a fan, so I'm hoping that we'll have success. It doesn't help that Coach Babers is known as a giant killer, and we're playing them at Syracuse. That doesn't help. But I have faith in my little brothers, man. We're gonna get it done.
for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'll be up in Syracuse to watch the game. So hopefully I'm the good luck charm, I guess. But again, Oscar McBride, appreciate you for taking the time, man. This was fantastic.
Course,
I was only going
man.
to keep you for like 30 minutes, and then conversation just got so good I had to keep you for a little bit longer.
It's all good,
thank
man.
you so
It's
much.
all good anytime. I appreciate you guys having me.
Thank
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. As we have
Weren't you
Oscar
at the
McBride
Marshall
lead,
game?
if you guys could just throw in some Go Irishes in the chat, we would really appreciate it because that was an awesome interview right there.
Weren't you at the Marshall game though?
Shut up, Sean.
I was just gonna say wear a different hoodie. That's all. Just make sure you wear a different hoodie.
No, it's funny, man. They won every game that I had gone to until the last 2 regular season games I've gone to, are Cincinnati and Marshall. The last 2, Sean. And I blame my dad, okay? Because my dad came for both those trips. I blame him. If he's listening, it's my dad's fault. It's not me. I'm the good luck charm. It's just, yeah.
Dad, we love you, but we might need you to kind of stay behind.
Yep.
On this one.
That's it, man. And I know that Salty just said, "Don't bring your wife, Ryan." You've said she's been all lucky. So Salty, she has been there. She did not come the last 2 trips as well. So the common denominators here are that my dad came the last 2. My wife also didn't come. So whether my dad's the good luck charm or my wife jinxed us, it's one way or the other right there, right? So yeah.
Maybe it's reversed on the road though.
Yeah. I haven't been on to a road game in a little bit, man. The last road game. Wow, what was the last road game I went to? Dude, I haven't been to a road game, Sean, since I think it was 2015 Temple when they came here to Temple. Remember that game? Deshaun had like that 80-yard touchdown run.
Crazy environment. That environment.
It was.
That was Matt Rule squad with PJ Walker as the quarterback, right?
Yes. Yeah. PJ Walker was the quarterback. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was a great game, man. Alizé, I forget if Alizé was Jones or Mack at that point, but he had that long catch, last drive to. That was a great game.
Deshaun doing on his long touchdown run when he got to the end zone, mocking the Owls. Yeah, that was a big game.
Oh yeah. He hit the little. I forgot about that. He hit the little.
He hit it after that long touchdown run. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's really funny. But getting back to it, Sean, want to thank Oscar McBride, tight ends, 91 to 94 for Notre Dame. So he was right in the midst of the end of the golden era of Notre Dame football, man. So he got to play with a lot of great football players. He just said Rocket Ismail called him when he was as a recruit, which is pretty insane, man. So want to thank him. We also had Adon Shuler on earlier. Go back and check out the early portion of this podcast if you want to listen to my interview one-on-one with Adon Shuler. So we had Adon Shuler on today. We had Oscar McBride. Fantastic start to the podcast here, Sean. But we want to get into some of the future of Notre Dame football with what Adon Shuler could bring to Notre Dame. We also saw a lot of great performances from this past week on the high school football circuit, Sean. So I want to drop this in the chat as I always do in case people would like to read things rather than listen. I am one of those. I actually am more of a reader than I am a listener sometimes. So through in this piece, Notre Dame commit roundup, standouts from week 9 in high school football, Sean. So this was a bananas week, man. I usually try to do 5 to 6 guys of like the key standouts, Sean. I ended up going with 7, and I had to cut myself at 7, man, because I'm like, I could keep going. Like, it's insane. We talked about it on the post-game show a little bit, right? Or on the post-game show about what CJ Carr did this past weekend for Saline High School in the state of Michigan. They played Lake Orion. Orion? I don't know how you pronounce it. Whatever. Anyway.
Orion, but yeah.
Orion, sure. Okay. They beat Lake Orion 49-21, Sean. CJ Carr threw for 383 touchdowns and he threw for 383 yards, not 383 touchdowns, and 4 touchdowns through the air. Also ran for 2 more scores, Sean. So he didn't play the full game, and he had 6 total touchdowns in this game. So I know there was, we talked to Oscar about, hey, what's the issues with the offense? And he mentioned, maybe quarterback needs to kind of take a jump up and be a little better. 2024 class for Notre Dame right now does have a very good quarterback in it. It is CJ Carr, and he just had a great showing this past weekend.
We can keep going.
You keep going? All right, let's keep going, man.
Because everybody was up in arms about the last game, and he's this and he's that. Look, there's a reason he is who he is. Kids have bad games on every level. On every level. I just watched C.J. Stroud struggle Saturday. Bryce Young struggled Saturday. They're probably two of the top 3 quarterbacks. They're going to be taken in the NFL draft. Look, it happens. And when you overreact to a kid having a bad week in high school football and try to apply it to whether or not his ranking is right or whether or not he's going to, be good on a college level, it's a little bit too much. Just like we try not to overreact to the great games. But there are certain things you just can't ignore, and I'm sure we'll get to those as we get to some of the skill positions.
Well, let's get to the skill position, Sean. So just kind of rolling through a couple of these performances. Jaden Lamar, running back out of Lake Stevens in the state of Washington. They beat Kamiak 56-10. Sean, he ran for 239 yards and 4 touchdowns. And he did so on only 17 carries. So Jaden Lamar on the day ran for 14 yards per carry. Through the season so far, 814 yards rushing, 14 touchdowns. He's averaging 9 yards a carry. He's also got 13 catches for 132 and another touchdown, Sean. So he's averaging right around 10 yards a touch so far this year. 9 yards a carry, which is pretty bizarre. And we also had Jeremiah Love, the new commits in the Notre Dame 2023 class. This was a game that I highlighted on the board, and I also did a film review on. So I watched this whole game. Christian Brothers laid it down against Edwardsville, who actually Edwardsville was winning early in that game, but Christian Brothers defeated them 44-17. So I know you know Edwardsville. They are an Illinois high school, of course. And Jeremiah Love ran the ball 12 times, 97 yards.
Yeah.
He had, he had a 38-yarder in that game that was just a fantastic run. He was working in the middle of the field, cut on a dime to his left, cut on a dime to his right, worked to the outside, and exploded up the sideline for 38 yards. Also had a dynamic 77-yard catch for a touchdown on a wheel route. So he had 3 catches for 100 yards. He had 12 carries for 97. So on 15 touches in the game, he had 197 yards, which is not quite as good as Jalen Lamar's 14 yards a touch. This one was only 13.1 yards per touch for Jeremiah Love. So a step down, a little bit of a step down. Let's go even a step further down, Sean, because Dylan Edwards in this past game, Derby out of Kansas, defeated Newton 49-20. In this game, Sean, he ran for 295 yards and 5 touchdowns on only 19 carries. Dylan Edwards outdid not only Jalen Lamar's 14 yards a carry, not only Jeremiah Love's 13.1 yards a touch, he averaged 15.5 yards per carry, Sean. And Dylan Edwards expected to be either to be a slot receiver at Notre Dame, punt returner, could also do some stuff out of the backfield. Want to talk about dynamic on the ground. So Notre Dame had 3 dudes this week that averaged over 10 yards a pop on the ground, which was pretty bizarre.
Dylan Edwards, Jeremiah Love, and Jay Lamar, from an explosive standpoint, is that how you would rank them? Would you rank them Edwards, Love, Lamar?
Probably. Well, straight line speed. That's how I would rank it. It gets a little. It's an interesting conversation, right? Because then the conversation goes for me. It's like, okay, so Dylan Edwards, 155 to 160 pounds, running 4.3 something, right? Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
But then Jeremiah Love's running 4.47 probably at almost 200 pounds. So different, like it's fast times acceleration, right? Like that's the force thing, right? But we're talking about a straight line in a race. That's how I would rank it. Yeah. But I think there was a conversation to be had, like, what's more impressive, 155 running 4.38 or 200 pounds running 4.47, like it's a little different.
I think I'm impressed with both.
Yeah. Oh, well, yes.
They're walking like, that's pretty. I don't think we've seen that at Notre Dame in a while. This combination that's coming in with these three guys. I don't even want to put them in a position. I'll just call them. I think Jeremiah Love is a running back, but the other two guys are athletes. And I think we talked about it on a previous show. I think I used Percy Harvin as far as the usage. Someone else threw out a McFadden, the way they used him at Arkansas, even though he was a much bigger player. But there are a lot of different ways. You just want to get the ball in their hands. Yep. Find a way to get the ball in their hands. And please don't make us wait till they're sophomores. Get the ball in their hands, special teams, wildcat, jet sweeps, reverses, screens, whatever. Get the ball in their hands and let them do what they do best.
No doubt. And the last skill position player I wanted to throw out here, Sean. This was the tough time I had, right? It's like, do I want to put Rico Flores on here, who had, he has a good game every single week? Do I want to put Braylon James, who had another long touchdown in his game with Stony Brook? Do I want to put Cam Williams on, who's going to have a long touchdown every single week? I ended up going with Jaden Greathausen this week, not because he's a fan favorite, not because he's one of my favorite players in the class, but because he had another great milestone in Westlake's 70-0 victory. Again, 70-0 victory over Austin. Now, on this day, Sean, he had 5 catches for 112 yards and 2 touchdowns. He hit on his first touchdown catch, which was like a little swing pass that he took about 50 yards. He scored his 50th career touchdown reception at Westlake. So 50 touchdown catches in the career of Jaden Greathouse. Now on the season, he is up to 32 catches for 616 yards and 8 touchdowns. He's averaging 19.3 yards per reception, also averaging 18 yards a catch and 3 punts returned for touchdowns. So wanted to take this in a second because I know Jane has listened to the show. Jane, if you are listening, congratulations on the 50th career touchdown reception for Westlake, man. Sean, he's already solidified it himself as one of the best players to ever play for Austin Westlake. He is that type of caliber right now.
Once again, he's a pup that bites, to take that from he's been biting since he was a freshman. That's who Jaden Greathouse is. And he's going to continue to do that when he walks in as a freshman at Notre Dame. He's going to bite. He's going to force his way onto the field. He's probably going to start making plays. I forgot your comp, because I remember we did a comp one day. You said he was a mixture of Michael Floyd and you combined 2 guys. I forget the comp.
I think that was Brian that did that. I think. He said Michael Floyd and somebody else. I can't remember who he said.
Okay.
Did he say Floyd and Tate? Golden Tate, maybe? I can't remember. I said he kind of reminds me a little bit of Cooper Kupp, man. That's what he reminds me of. I don't know. It's physical, a little quicker than you would anticipate for a guy his size, 6'2", 210 pounds. But he's a good football player, man. And ESPN still has him rated as a tight end. Which is awesome. It's awesome.
I keep telling you, there's a room in North Carolina that fits probably about 4 people, and that is the recruiting staff for that organization. So take everything with a grain of salt. When you see everything updated or you see positions like a player being positioned out of position, the staff isn't as big as you might think.
Yep. So that was the volume getters on the offensive side of the ball. That was a skill position player. Short. I wanted to throw in 2 defensive players into this conversation. Okay, one is Micah Bell, cornerback out of the Kincaid school. Also does a lot of work at running back for his school. Mm-hmm. So they fell short in their matchup, 20-15 to Episcopal, and it was, he does his work on the defensive side of the ball for Kincaid school as well. But Sean, I just want to throw this out here, man. He has now run for over 1,000 yards on the year. He ran for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns. They gave my man at about 5'11", 165 pounds. They gave him 34 carries. He carried the ball 34 times in one football game. But I want to throw it in there because 149, 2 touchdowns. He's also named Homecoming King during this game, Sean. So,
Micah Bell. That's key. Yeah, some swag. You got some swag, man. Swag you to win Homecoming King.
It's funny too. I don't know if you saw it on the message board, but I put on this. Someone did this clip of top mile per hours that Notre Dame players have hit on the season and during a game. And they mentioned like 4 or 5 guys, and Michael Bell wasn't one of them. I put it on the board, and they're like, and they didn't even get the fastest guy. Like that's Michael Bell. Like he's the fastest guy in the excuse me, in the 2023 class. Like I would love to see him race Dylan Edwards, but I have to think it's Michael Bell. I mean, the kid runs a 10.4 100-meter. Like he's lightning, man. He's lightning. I think he ran like a 10.2 something, but it was like a win-aided time. But yeah, he's lightning. And the last guy, a guy that we haven't talked about a ton, but I think has a chance to be a really good football player for Notre Dame, is Devin Houston, defensive lineman out of St. James School in Maryland, Sean. They beat Potomac School 28-25. In this victory, Devin had 5 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and 1.5 sacks. I saw the highlights of him from this game, Sean. He worked from one play. He was playing like 7 technique at defensive end. Then on the next play, he was working in a 3 tech. In obvious pass situations, they were putting him in a 1 tech. Just an incredible amount of versatility that Devin Houston brings to the game. So I wanted to get him on this list because not only did he have a really good outing in a win, I still think that we talk about him enough, man. Like, let's start giving Devin Houston a little bit of talk. He's a good football player, man. I think he's a near consensus top 200 player in the country now on recruiting rankings. Like, he's a good football player.
And I wonder, once he gets on campus, how much weight he adds, what his body's going to look like, where he's going to be used, right? Is he going to be pretty much the next Jason Adamiola? Does he grow a little bit?
He's even longer than Jason, though, man. Like, he's long.
So can he go back and forth depending upon the combination of guys that are in there on the interior on a certain play? It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
He's like one of my most intriguing guys to watch after they get here from the 23.
Yeah, because he's a really interesting kid, Sean. Because I remember the last time I talked to him, it was a couple weeks ago at this point, and he told me he's like 6'4" and a half-ish, somewhere in that ballpark, right? Pretty long arms, but he's already up to 280 pounds. Like he's a massive kid, man. Like he's probably gonna be 300 pounds pretty quick, And then at that point, you're like, when Stephon Tuitt was here, Stephon Tuitt played in a 3-4, right? So he's a 3-4 defensive end in a 4-man front. What is Devin Houston going to play, the majority of the time? Like, we think he could play nose. I think he could play 3-tech. Like, he could play a lot of different spots in Notre Dame's system. Interested to see how they use him because, especially when Marcus Freeman was at Cincinnati, they had a lot of success with those versatile defensive linemen. A guy that maybe didn't fit perfectly into one spot, but they played so well, right? Like, that's interesting. So, looking for it, man. Looking forward to it. So that is our big time commit performances of the week, Sean. Want to get into the mailbag. Before we do, if you could please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, notification bell. We have a lot of great shows for you tonight. We'll have IB Nation Sports Talk at 6 o'clock, and then upon further review at 8. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss a show. And if you have any questions, you can start filing them in. We already have 16 questions highlighted, and so I'm still coming through it. So there probably is a lot more at this point. So, but that's going to do it for this recruiting side of the Irish Breakdown podcast for this Notre Dame recruiting hour. All right, Sean, let's get into the mailbag. Mailbag. Let's get into this guy. I'm going to start us off here, Sean, from 99 Problems, but BK81. Ryan, are you concerned we'll lose any current 2023 commits? Also, any will add soon. And do you know where Marcus Freeman stands on taking a transfer quarterback in the offseason? Will admissions make this process easier? Sean, I guess let's tackle this one at a time, right? So we've talked about this a little bit. I guess I'll start out with you by asking you, are you concerned Notre Dame losing 2023 commits if they don't show a ton of improvement moving forward for the rest of the season?
No, and and this is me, right? Because I know we're at a point where you can say, I don't know which Notre Dame team is going to show up, right? I really don't. I don't expect this team to collapse. Could they lose to better teams that they face in November? Sure. But they could very well beat the three remaining ranked teams on their schedule. So it's just one of those things we'll watch. That's one reason. And then the next reason, the 23 class, in my opinion, I think we mentioned this last week, they're on a mission. Like, they're on a mission. They're already locked in. They don't care about what's happening right now. They feel like they're the difference makers, which makes them even more confident. Like, okay, yeah, just wait until we get there. They feel like they're the difference makers. So they're locked in. Their love for Coach Freeman, his vision, and what they believe in, and the type of kids they are on top of that. Just the type of kids they are. Like we had Adon on earlier. Just the type of young man he is. And the background he comes from and his family. He's a Notre Dame. I don't like the word fit. He's a Notre Dame kid that will thrive at Notre Dame. And he knows that. And it doesn't matter if Ohio State comes a calling or anybody else. They're locked in. They're locked in. I'm telling you, the brotherhood they have, just talking to Charles Jagasaw and his visit this weekend and the time he spent with Drake. And he was just like, yo, the love we got, just being around Drake. And Drake's the Pied Piper, right? He's there every home game. And at this point, it seems like anybody that's connected to Notre Dame knows Drake Bowen on site. And that was one of the things that stood out for Charles Jagasaw. Like, yo, this cat Drake is like a rock star. He's like, and he hasn't played a game. But that just goes to like this recruiting class and the brotherhood they have and the connection they have to one to another, which is why Keon Keeley, before he made his decision to decommit, blocked the text thread they were all in because he knew I can't make this type of decision and continue to talk to guys I consider my brothers. So it's just the bond. They're different. They're just different.
And I mean, the point blank comes to it, Sean, like the Adon Schulers, the Drake Bowens of the world. Like, I'm never going to be concerned about those guys sticking, right? Like Braylon Jameses of the world. Like they're in the class for a reason. They have a deeper purpose for it, right? Mm-hmm. People are going to continue to bring up guys like Peyton Bowen. Is he fully committed? Is he looking around? Like all that type of stuff. I'll say this. If there is any other players from the 2023 class that end up out of this class, they're not going to leave because of what's happening right now in the season of the committed players, right? There might be some uncommitted players that maybe were looking at Notre Dame and bad performance on the field kind of stirred them away, right? They're like, okay, now like that's what I was waiting to see. I don't like it type of thing, right? But Keon left before the season started, right? Like he left before the season started. Elijah Page decommitted from Notre Dame because he always wanted to go to USC, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, right? It had nothing to do. It was an excuse for him to make the move, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Peyton Bowen, if Peyton Bowen's not in the class, because we've been talking about this for months, Sean, like it could have happened at any point, right? If he wanted to leave, right? I don't think that it's because Notre Dame's struggling. I think it's because if Peyton Bowen ends up in this class, it's because he never fully bought into the class. That's what it ends up being, right? And he left his options open, right? Whether it's Oklahoma or Texas A&M. I know people are asking about Oregon. I know there's a question about it. We'll talk about the Oregon thing in a few minutes. But all that to say is I don't think that the win-loss record has as much impact as people want to act like it does. I think if anybody leaves this class right now, it's because they were always half in, right? Like not fully invested. I'm not saying Peyton's not. I'm just saying that's the only players that I think would leave based upon the current record, right? Because I think it's an excuse to leave. It's an excuse. I mean, because I like Elijah Page a lot, right? Elijah Page, and this is just my opinion, I think the win-loss record and the loss to Marshall made it very easy for Elijah to choose USC because he wanted to go to USC. That's what I think. That's what I believe. Okay, I know it's what I think. It's what I believe. So
absolutely, and I would much rather have a guy that wants to be here that might not be as talented than a talented player that does not really want to be here at Notre Dame. And that's what you would have gotten in the long run with Elijah Page. A guy that you were his second choice in his heart. He's here, and then all of a sudden, he meets Harry Heastan, not the recruiter, but the coach on the practice field. And then it's like, then he sees the snow. And then he starts wanting to yearn for the West Coast and being homesick. It's like, you know what? Let's go get a Midwest kid. He doesn't want to be here. Let's go get a Midwest kid. Might not project the tackle, projects the guard. Really like him. He loves Notre Dame. We can coach him up, make him a really good player.
Yep, that's it, man. So second part of this question is also any will add soon. So I guess a good way to go about this, Sean, would just be to, hey, let's talk about some players that Notre Dame is in on that could be somewhat in the near future, right? That maybe they would make a decision.
Yeah.
So quarterback wise, and we have a question about quarterbacks, so I'll leave that for a couple minutes from now, right? But quarterback wise, Notre Dame is doing their homework. Wide receiver is one position that's left on the board. That is Tayshawn Lyons. Last time I talked to Tayshawn, he told me that originally he had wanted to make a decision in late October. I have not heard that he has gone back on that. So I think that we might have some type of understanding of a commitment plan from Tayshawn Lyons in the near future. Like we know that things are in a good spot with Tayshawn Lyons. Can Notre Dame close? It's a question. We'll see what happens. But I think that at this point, that's what we're looking at. It's just a matter of when does it end? Can Notre Dame close? Like, that's the question with Tayshawn Lyons. Yeah. The other guy that we categorize as an athlete is Brandon Hillman, the running back, wide receiver, safety, rover, whatever you want to call him from.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
He's one of the hottest guys on the market, man.
He is, man. He really brother. Every time I go on Twitter, he keeps getting another offer. It's nuts. It's nuts. He is really blowing up, man. The athlete out of the state of Virginia. Again, Notre Dame feels good about where they are after his visit to Notre Dame a couple weeks ago. They feel good about it. That's another one of like, hey, how long is that one going to last? Because if it doesn't last long, I feel good about Notre Dame's chances. But again, the more attention he's getting, because he keeps getting offers and offers and offers. So if it stays open for a long time, then you're going to be like, oh, he's going to have a chance to visit other schools, continue to build relationships with other coaches. Then that gets a little murky. But right now, I think Brandon Hillman's in a pretty good spot. We just don't have any real understanding of when the process will end for him. Christopher Terrick, a offensive lineman out of the state of Wisconsin, Sean, is a guy that state of Illinois, excuse me. How dare I insult Illinois like that? Was committed to the is still committed to the University of Wisconsin. Please excuse my me misspeaking there for a second. So he's a kid that visited Notre Dame recently. Notre Dame decided to offer him when he took the visit. Since the loss of Paul Christ as the head coach of the University of Wisconsin, I think things have kind of opened back up for Christopher Terrick a little bit. He has not said whether he plans on decommitting or if he is going to decommit ultimately. But I think that if Notre Dame made a good impression on him, so if something does happen with him in the future, if he does decide to go separate ways with Wisconsin, I think Notre Dame would be in the mix. But again, we have really no inkling if that's going to happen or not, right? Like I have no idea if Christopher Terrick's going to decommit or not. It's just if he does, I think Notre Dame could be in on that one. So that's the
tough decision for him. I think continuity is what he's really holding on to. Like Chris is gone, so now it comes down to the continuity of the staff that he's grown to love up there in Madison. And the only way the continuity stays is if Jim Leonard ultimately gets the job. And that's something to wait for probably. You'll find out late November, right before signing day. And it's going to be a Notre Dame, in my opinion, a Notre Dame-Wisconsin battle with Notre Dame coming on strong down the stretch. So, and just to go back to Tayshawn Lyons just, posted that he just received an offer from Texas A&M as well, coming in late. So, but like Terrick he loves Notre Dame, and he was open. He said that Harry Heastan was very open about how he's going to be viewed and how he views him. Like he's a tackle, and they want him to be a guard at Notre Dame. That's what they view him as. And he was very intrigued by that and the feedback he got from Harry Heaston. All of these recruits feel like every time they talk to Harry Heaston, they learn something. Like, I don't know what he's saying or what he's talking about, but for him to say, yo, this is how I see you and da-da-da, whatever he says, they get drawn into it and they fall in love with him. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to monitor for sure because they want to get back to a fifth offensive lineman, and it looks like Christopher Tarrick might be the guy they would like, but again, still committed to University of Wisconsin. So does that change? When will that change?
Yeah.
How long can Notre Dame stay in on it and be patient with it, Sean? Because like you said, I mean, if he wants to wait this thing out and see if Leonard is the coach or if, just kind of the relationship keeps building, Notre Dame has to kind of take another option, right? Another swing at a different player, most likely at some point, right? Like you can't just tread water too long in recruiting.
And he's for the playoffs. State playoffs start this weekend in Illinois. Guys like him, Cam Williams, are preparing for the playoffs. Cam Williams is probably going to make a deep run. But Tarek, they still might be. To me, if I'm Notre Dame, I get him back on campus one more time in November. And then if I really knock his socks off, I really think it's Notre Dame's recruitment to lose at that point. Because they have all the momentum. They have the momentum. And Wisconsin really can't do anything until December. They're kind of in limbo. The staff there can still kind of communicate, but it is what he knows already about that program. And it's unstable, the situation that he knows. Notre Dame, he knows this coaching staff. He loves Harry Heaston, and he knows they're going to be there for sure.
Yep. Yeah, 100%, man. Like I think that Notre Dame's going to be there if he wants them to be there. That's where it is right now. So, last question, I think, Sean, is a two-parter here from 99 Problems. And 99, again, this is a fantastic question. A lot of layers to it, a lot of different questions. It was great. Says, do you know where Marcus Freeman stands on taking a transfer quarterback in the offseason? Will admissions make that easier for him? So, Sean, I guess that will start this conversation off like this. I haven't talked to Marcus Freeman about this directly, right? So, I'm not going to pretend to have, this inside look into Marcus Freeman's mind here, 99 Problems. What I would say, though, is that I would be surprised if Notre Dame didn't make a run at a transfer quarterback, right? Like, we've talked about this a ton. You just kind of feel it, right? Like it feels that way, like transfer quarterback plus still trying to get a 2023 quarterback. I think you still go after both. I think that's the plan as of now, is that Notre Dame will be active in the transfer market. I don't know if I would say it's easier. Notre Dame has to go through some hoops that others don't have to go through for transfer quarterbacks. It does, but will it be easier? I don't know. All to answer the question, though, is I do believe that the staff is open to a transfer quarterback, and I would be surprised if they didn't end up with one after the 2022 season.
And you're not looking at first year, second year guys when it comes to the transfer portal. There are admission restrictions when it comes to transfers at Notre Dame. Like, forget athletically. Admissions, and admissions is not about to change. There's transfer policies for the football program.
Well, Sean, think about it with Brandon Joseph, right? Like he was an undergrad transfer, right? Coming from Northwestern, and it still almost didn't happen.
Yeah. So, Chris Smith,
Harvard.
He was a grad transfer, but he was coming from Harvard. John Sott, coming from Harvard. It's like, go. That's why a kid like Brian doesn't like him. A kid like Jeff Sims, he coming from Georgia Tech. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you look at that and say, okay, he's a quality student. He should be able to transfer in from Georgia Tech. Drake May's not coming from North Carolina. Like, why would he leave North Carolina at this point? No reason to. You look at other grad transfers. I guess at this point, Hank might be a grad transfer. He might graduate. But I don't even know if you want a kid like that. I mean, you have to sit back and wait and let the landscape. I'll put it to you like this, though. The conversations and the calls are already being made. Like, this is the same time last year we started hearing about Jahmyr Gibbs in Alabama having conversations. Like in October.
Sean, put it like this, and you disagree with me if you'd like, because I generally don't know what you're going to reply to here, and I want to hear your input here. Mm-hmm. The quarterback that Notre Dame ends up with in the transfer portal is not in the transfer portal right now. Disagree? Agree?
I agree with that.
Okay.
I agree with that. I think, but I think it will begin to materialize. Like if you understand how things work and you really have your eye on what's going on around the country, you can start to identify the possibilities. Yep. And then when it becomes official, then you jump on it, right? Because it's connected to coaching changes, guys that might possibly be up for head coaching jobs, quarterbacks that, like Jack Cohn, lost their job to a younger quarterback. A program is looking to go in a different direction. All of those different types of things are things that you have to look at. And the next coming weeks, that's when you start to see these type of things happening.
Absolutely. So, I mean, Sean, you're telling me that this stuff doesn't happen as that stuff happens before guys enter the portal? You're lying to me, man. You're lying to me.
I'm talking about the NCAA. Like, they get mad about what they want to get mad about and then just turn a blind eye to everything else. So,
Yep. So let us go to the next question. A lot of great questions today, by the way. I want to go to Jason Saxton, who said, get my question in now in case I am late. Any intel on any of the 2023-2024 commits that may have visited other places this weekend? Thanks, guys. Sean, I know this question's about Peyton Bowen, right? So Jason, I mean, there's a couple guys that are committed that have been taking visits. Peyton Bowen's one of them, obviously. And then Jaden Lamar's the other that everyone, has been kind of asking about and such. So let me just touch base on the Oregon Peyton Bowen stuff, okay? So we've talked about this a lot, Sean, and it's been on the board. It's been on the show. It's been everywhere, right? I will put it like this. How did the trip go to Oregon? By all indications that I've heard, went well.
Yeah.
Went well. I mean, why wouldn't it? All right. I mean, Oregon has some nice facilities, man. And they just had a big victory. Went well. Oregon's a beautiful place. It is. Went well. Why would it not go well? That's what you're going to hear from these types of visits, right? Like, it went well. This is all I'll say, though, as I know people have been like, oh, it's another trip for Eli. Like, how long are we going to stick on that? We're going to stick on that until Eli's not taking visits anymore, right? Like, that's the end all to it. I'll say this. By everything I've heard from people close to the situation, Eli likes Oregon. He does. He really likes Oregon. I wouldn't be surprised if Eli Bowen ends up at Oregon. I wouldn't be shocked. Peyton Bowen, I asked somebody this on the board, and it was like crickets, Sean. I'm like, we're working on this Peyton Bowen going to another school thing for months and months and months, right? Before the season started, you're like, oh, he's going to transfer. Okay, cool. I've heard Texas A&M. I've heard Oklahoma. Those are the two teams, right, where you just keep hearing them constantly. Okay. And at the end of the day, man, until he doesn't take visits anymore, he's on the table, right? Like, let's call it what it is. He's doing his due diligence. He's going on visits. Sure, we can have this conversation.
Right.
But why is everyone freaking out about Oregon right now? And I know why they are, right? Because they're doing pretty well last few games, and they have some money to throw around. Let's call it what it is, right? That's why.
Yeah.
But I'll ask you again. I asked the people on the board, and I didn't hear a single word about it, Sean. When have you ever heard Peyton Bowen say a word about Oregon in the past? That's all. I mean, I'm really going to try to probably end the conversation right there, man. Like, that's where it is. Will Peyton Bowen end up being in the 2023 class? I think so, but who knows? Things could happen, right? Like, I'm not going to predict it's going to happen, but like, I feel okay about it. Yeah. But I'll say this: if Peyton Bowen doesn't end up signing with Notre Dame, I don't think it's going to be Oregon, because I don't think he cares about Oregon. Like, that's just all it is. Could he end up in Oklahoma? Maybe. Sure. Maybe. It's possible. I'm going to say no. Texas A&M. Is it possible? Sure. Maybe. Oregon? I have never heard Peyton Bowen or anybody near Peyton Bowen mention Oregon aside from Eli Bowen? Once. Haven't heard it, man. I haven't heard it. Sean, have you? Have you heard Peyton Bowen mention Oregon before?
I have not. I had people asking me about certain 24 commit going to Penn State. And I'm like, this is the thing. Our job is to talk to these young men and then convey what they tell us. That's all we can do. And Peyton Bowen going to Oregon there's no reason to be upset or get worried about it because it doesn't line up. Them being a threat doesn't line up with what he's told us or anyone connected to him. That's basically what Ryan is telling you. Like, Oregon, that's what you're worried about? Oregon? It's crazy because people want to count how many times Brandon Davis Swain goes to Michigan games. He's been doing it for years. He's going to keep doing it. Samaj Morgan and all of the Michigan kids that live in the area that all grew up playing football together, that's what they do. He's probably going to end up going to 2 or 3 more. And if he stays committed to Notre Dame, he will. If he chooses to go to Michigan, he will. But that doesn't change the fact that he said the reason he chose to shut down this kid, knowing how good he was, knowing who he was going to be pursued by, chose to shut down his recruitment on his own. Nobody expected him to commit to Notre Dame. He fell in love with Al Washington, said this was the decision for him. He's been to 2 NFL games. One of those NFL games was to go see one of his mentors, who's who? A Notre Dame alum, Khalid Kareem.
Yeah.
It was one of his mentors. So he's been to 2 NFL games, he's been to 2 Michigan games, and he's going to be at Notre Dame more than likely for the Clemson game. Mm-hmm. And C.J. Carr is still one of his best dudes. So it's called recruiting, man. I don't know. We try to use the word relax. We love talking to you guys on the message board, but the buzz around this Oregon thing was almost like, okay, this is a little unnecessary. Like,
and Sean, like, I half understand it, right? Because I'm like, okay, fans are freaking out because Peyton Bowen's taking visits, right? Okay, I get that. But like at the end of the day, if it's not Oklahoma or it's not Texas A&M right now, I don't think it matters. I really don't. Like, because again, if you told me that Peyton Bowen ultimately decommitted and went to Oklahoma, I'd be like, okay, like I could see that, right? Like I could see it. I still think he ends up with Notre Dame, but I could understand it and I could see that smoke, right? Like that fire's been there for a little bit. Right. Oregon is one that I've never heard about. Like I've never heard it, man. I just.
That's that's a reaction to the Dante Moore stuff. I guarantee you. That's just Notre Dame fans saying, "Oh my God, Oregon." They're not.
Yeah,
you don't have to say it. You can play the middle, Ryan. I'll say it. There's no chance Peyton Bowen's going to Oregon. In my opinion,
right now, I mean, unless something dramatic unless a dramatic shift happens, 100%. Yeah, I'll say that. Like Peyton Bowen right now, no chance he goes to Oregon. No chance, Peyton Bowen.
He probably had a heck of a weekend. Probably got
I would enjoy Oregon too.
Probably got a lifetime hookup to Jordans.
Yeah.
Coming to his
Hey man. I don't know what the big like outlets are that cover the Oregon Ducks football program, man. But if you want to bring me in for a visit so I can see the campus and stuff, I'll go. That doesn't mean I'll leave at Irish Breakdown, though.
Absolutely. I'll ask you. Look, because I've asked this question to other people. If you were a high school kid right now, give me the 3 trips that you would definitely go on, without question. Like Oregon's one. I'm strictly going to Oregon to get the shoe hookup and all the perks. Like, even if I'm not even considering them, that's a trip I'm taking. I'm sorry. I'm taking a trip. I'll probably take an Alabama trip.
I go to Texas. I would go to Texas, honestly. I would go out Texas. There. Yeah. I go to Austin. Yeah.
Yep.
Somebody said Miami. I've been to Miami. Miami doesn't really do it for me. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, Miami's not like a
Hawaii. Jay, I agree. I'll go to Hawaii. Yeah, I'll go on a trip to Hawaii for sure. Yeah.
Well, Hawaii would be a really good sleeper. Like if you get 5, right? You get 5
Yes.
trips on it. So if
Five,
you have
five
4,
officials. Yep.
yeah, if you get 4 in the bag and you're like, okay, these are my top 4, I just get one that's like Hawaii's probably, yeah.
Hey man, people do that. People do that. Not necessarily the Hawaii show, but like people will be like, all right, I just want to. It's like the Richard Young thing, right? Like Richard Young was never going to go to Notre Dame, but it's like, let me go check out Notre Dame. Like it's a historic place, right? Like sure, you know what I mean? Like it's what it is. So yeah, that's funny. That's really funny. Oh, okay, Jay. Fair enough. Jay said as an 18-year-old, he definitely want to go to Miami.
Yeah,
All right, that's fair.
I'll push back on that. I would much rather be in my mid-20s in Miami than in that 18.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know what? A Miami recruit probably can get into the same places. Jay might have a point.
Miami is fun. When you're in the right state of mind, Miami is a fun place. It's a fun place. I accept it, Jay. I accept it. Take my comment back from earlier. Wanted to throw this one up from Archer. What's up, Archer? Because he had a couple Ohio State recruiting notes that is pertinent to Notre Dame. So I just wanted to throw it on the board, throw it up here because I just wanted to comment on one part. So he says some quick notes from Ohio State recruiting. Ian Moore committed last week. I know Archer. I know we've talked about it in the past, right? Like, yeah, that was probably a foregone conclusion. Micah Hudson visited for the Iowa game. Micah Hudson's a great player. Ohio State is very smart to get him on campus for the Iowa game. Good for them. And it says Ohio State feels good about Taysir Denmark, who has a commitment date of November 24th. Of course, Sean, Taysir Denmark is the slot receiver, dynamic player out of Roman Catholic. Just wanted to comment on that last one. Because I know a lot of people have asked me about Taysir Denmark on the board and in the show in the past, and I've always maintained that I don't feel like I just didn't feel like Taysir was ever like super interested in Notre Dame, and just kind of now as we're getting closer and closer to the day, I just want to kind of put it out in the universe again that like just for whatever reason, Taysir said the right things about Notre Dame. I just don't ever think it was a fit for him, right? Like I just don't think that it was ever a place that he gravitated towards. So if Ohio State gets Taysir Denmark, great get. Fantastic football player. So just wanted to throw that one out there, just kind of reiterate a little something about Taysir Denmark. But thanks for those notes though, Archer. And good luck to those young men as they're making their decision. Yeah, Jonathan Gabrick, Sean said, question, what 2024 kids should we keep an eye on for Notre Dame? So, I mean, obviously, Notre Dame already has 6 commits in the 2024 class. I mean, there's a lot, Jonathan. I mean, if we want to talk wide receiver, then we could talk about Ryan Wingo, who's still uncommitted out there. Obviously, we could talk about Micah Hudson, who Archer just mentioned, the wide receiver out of the state of Texas. He's a really good football player. We talk about Jeremiah McClellan, the wide receiver out of Christian Brothers in St. Louis, Missouri, the teammate of now Notre Dame commit Jeremiah Love in the 2023 class. Like, there's a lot of players out there, man. Like, it's just a lot. I mean, are there any favorites you have out there, Sean? I know you like Justin Scott a lot. I don't know if you want to talk about Scott or.
Yeah, Justin Scott is just, he's stacking up. Everybody's coming after the kid, right? And that was, I'll be honest. I can be honest right now. My opinion, Notre Dame, it might have been because of the coaching change and transition of the new staff, but I feel like Notre Dame got in a little too late. They should have been in much earlier on Justin Scott. Much earlier on Justin Scott. And the offer was the offer he was waiting on. He was waiting on it. At this point, I still stick to my guns and say he wants to play close to home and somewhere in the Midwest. Now the SEC teams are coming in. Recent offer from Alabama. Miami, he took the Miami visit. It still looks to be coming in for the Clemson game. But, I mean, it's going to be a battle, right? But Notre Dame should probably get more visits than anyone. Wisconsin was in the running, but now with the change, you never know what's going to happen. Michigan is definitely a contender. Ohio State will be a contender. He's been to Ohio State for his visit there on game day. So, we'll see. It's a battle, but Notre Dame should be right there. And going into the spring, the winter, the contact period in January, and then on into the spring, they should get more communication. They should have more communication and visits from him just because of proximity and the connection on his coaching staff in high school. So,
yep,
there it is. But personally, I felt like the ball was dropped because they didn't get on him as early as they could have and get out in front as much as they could have, because you had to know he was going to blow up. I mean, you had to know this was coming once people saw his junior film. I mean, the kid is like, they've been working him at defensive end, Ryan. The teams are running away.
I like his offensive tackle film, Sean. I like his offensive tackle film, man. I do.
But teams were doubling him and then like running away from him, and he couldn't make plays. So literally, they moved him outside and went more to like a three-man front with 4 linebackers, and he started wrecking pass plays. And it was like, this type of talent, they had a chance to get in on them earlier. They didn't, but they're still right there at the top. So staff has to close, man.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to watch, man. I mean, he's a kid that's right in your backyard.
Elijah Rushing.
Elijah
Rushing is somebody I'm very interested in seeing how that goes. I mean, we were interested in Caleb Beasley, but that weekend with Alabama, Tennessee kind of just sealed the deal for him.
Yeah, and I mean, he grew up as a Tennessee guy, right? Like, he grew up in the state of Tennessee, obviously. He's in Lipscomb Academy. That was one where you were hoping Notre Dame could, keep pace, but it was with how Tennessee has just killed it so far this year. That was just you were punching a wall at the end there, if we're being honest, man. Like, that one, everyone knew where that one was going at the end. So, unfortunate. Elijah Rushing's a good one, Sean. Obviously, the defensive end out of the state of Arizona, really talented football player. He is a kid that has shown a lot of interest in Notre Dame early, but I mean, schools like Florida and Ohio State and Michigan, and there's going to be a lot of schools that are interested in Elijah Rushing, not even counting the West Coast schools, right? So we'll see. It's going to be a dogfight if Notre Dame gets in with Elijah Rushing at a very high level. So we'll see.
And I would think some of the defensive backs as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not the defensive. I think
Pete Woodyard.
But I trust the evaluation of Chris O'Leary and Mike Mickens so much that I feel like there's somebody coming that we might not be on our radar yet, right? Because they're watching junior film right now.
Yes.
So that's the thing about 24 kids. There's still a level of evaluation being done. So, and from what we've seen from Mickens and O'Leary being able to evaluate at the safety and cornerback position, I'll be very intrigued.
And I mean, they're finding people still, man. Like, Sean, did you see this Jackson Jones kid they just offered last night? I didn't know who he was. I watched his film. I'm like,
Exactly. That's my point.
Committed to Washington. Yeah. Just got a USC offer as well. Notre Dame offered now. A guy can play, man.
What do we say about Tarek? He's a Wisconsin commit. Oh, Wisconsin wants you as an O lineman? Okay. Bingo. Iowa wants you as an O lineman? Oh, bingo. Oh, Washington? They're looking at you at this position? More than likely, you can play. That's just like a hint to where, a kid is and what his film looks like, because certain programs always find a way to find gems at certain positions. I saw him last night when I saw him tweet that out. I was like, okay, let me go to huddle right quick. Like, okay. Yeah.
Sean, he's like a 6'3", 215-pound outside pass rusher right now, but My guy looked like Von Miller on the high school level, man.
Yeah.
Like he has some crazy flexibility for his size. I'm like, ooh. I mean, he's running outside track and he's bending his ankles. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Cool. We had a question here from Wade Miller. Said, how many wide receivers transfer or decommit after watching the terrible offense? Wayne, I don't want to talk too much about transfer off of the team because, like, who knows what's going to happen with that. The decommitment thing, I'll talk about this for a second, right? Jaden Greathouse, I think, is incredibly solid in his commitment. We had a question about Jaden Greathouse. We'll get to in a little bit here. I think Braylon James is very solid in his commitments. Not worried about those two folks. Not worried about Rico Flores either. I mean, we talked about it a ton, right? Like, he really liked Ohio State. If Ohio State had a spot and he was a take for Ohio State, that may have been the spot for Rico Flores. But ultimately, I think that they don't have much to worry about because there was never any doubt that Notre Dame was big on Rico, right? Like, Rico always knew the love was coming from Notre Dame. So I think they're fine there. And then Dylan Edwards, I think, is just solid, man. Like, so out of the 4 receivers in 2023, I'm not worried about them at all, Wayne. Like, I'm not talking about, I don't know enough about, the standing of the current wide receivers on the roster and who's disappointed and who's, upset. And like, I don't know any of that. All I know is the recruits that I talk to consistently, right? So the 4 in 2023, I'm not worried about. I know, Sean, we've talked about Cam Williams a ton. Like, Cam, I think, is about as solid as you possibly can be right now. Like, he's one of the big recruiters in the 2024 class right now for Notre Dame. So of the 5 kids that are committed at wide receiver over the 2023 and 2024 cycle, I'm personally not worried about any of them at the moment. I'm not. I don't know if you feel any differently, but like,
can we, I'll say it. I'll step out on a limb. There's only one position, in my opinion, where a recruit and their parents would seriously question Notre Dame. There's only one position on the offensive side of the ball. And that's wide receiver isn't one of them. I don't care how bad the offense is right now. Kids see that as an opportunity.
Yeah, a lot to. Yeah.
Jaden Greathouse is like, okay, it won't be awful. It won't be bad when I get there. Like, that's the mentality of kids, right? Because you've seen last night, I was watching TV yesterday afternoon, and I'm counting the number of Notre Dame wide receivers in the NFL, and I'm like, oh, snap.
It's a lot, man. It's a lot.
You can't say Notre Dame doesn't put wide receivers in the NFL because the proof is there.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, show me the quarterback.
Yeah.
That is the biggest question mark that has to be solved. I don't think this year's team and their offense impacts recruiting as well. I don't think it impacts recruiting in the 23 class. Conceivably, could Ryan Wingo be looking at things saying, maybe? He could. Still feel like Notre Dame's in a great spot with him. Yeah. But he could be watching it. But his perception could be, I can go there and make plays.
For sure.
And the 24 class has their quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference.
Yep.
Ryan and Cam are like, we got CJ coming in with CJ.
Yeah, exactly.
So, the only thing I think 23 would be the biggest impact, but I don't think it's.
Maybe though, Sean. But like all these wide receivers have committed in the class without a quarterback in the class for 2023. Like they've all joined the class without a quarterback even being on in the equation. Like Jaden Greathouse committed to Notre Dame after the Dante Moore saga ended, right? Like there was no clear answer at quarterback, and still made the commitments.
This is the crazy thing.
Yep.
I almost laughed. I never retweet kids and say something. So I'm watching the Oregon game this weekend. Dante Moore tweets out something to the effect of, those Oregon playmakers hit different.
Yeah.
And, my Notre Dame fandom jumped up for a second and I was able to control it. And I'm like, dude, you literally were calling and recruiting the 3 wide receivers that ended up at Notre Dame. Like, so what are you talking about? And this is the point. Even after he left, they stayed. They chose to stay. The quarterback that was calling them, recruiting them to come to Notre Dame left, and they all chose to stay. That says a lot.
Yep. I think it's very telling. I think it's very, very telling. Like, yeah. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it kind of finishes out. But again, right now, I feel solid where everything is.
Agreed.
There's some questions about transfer portal targets at quarterback, Sean. Let's handle that when there's guys actually to talk about, right? Like, I don't want to talk about Hank Bachmeier right now. Like, let's talk about.
Please, let's not talk about Hank.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's talk about some of those quarterbacks when they actually get in the portal. Like, there's somebody threw like DJ Uiagalelei's name out there. Like, he's not in the portal, man. Like, I don't want to assume that he's going to hit the portal. Like, when a guy hits the portal, I'll talk about him all day. Like, I'll give you my true evaluation of them as players, how I see their potential fit, everything. We'll talk about that. But right now, there's just everybody that's in the portal right now at quarterback. I just don't think is going to be a guy for Notre Dame. Like, I just don't. So, yeah.
And guys, help me out, because you wouldn't help yourselves out, because you wouldn't like Ryan Roberts when he's angry.
Oh, you wouldn't?
Please try not to mention DJ Uiagalelei too much, okay? Because Ryan loses it when you mention DJ. He loses it.
That's not true.
Just a little bit. Like, if you say DJ, let's go get DJ for the next quarterback, right? You will not see the best Ryan Roberts.
Well, DJ would also not be a good fit at Notre Dame, right? Like,
that's a nice way of putting it.
From a scheme perspective, like, if I was a team that was running like a vertical stretch type system with a lot of play action and stuff, I'd give DJ a shot. Sure, man. He's got a strong arm. He's a big kid. Yeah. For Notre Dame's offense they're currently running? Nah. Nah. I'm all
Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Roberts is a true professional.
Oh, yeah. That's it.
He put a really good face on that DJ conversation, right?
And if DJ enters the portal, I'm sure people will ask about it, and I'll talk about it at that point. But as of right now, DJ Uiagalelei is still a part of the Clemson program. So, next question. Sean, this is fun. Which recruit, this is from Wayne Miller, which recruit that's committed can play quarterback? And I know he probably said this like, oh, we don't have a quarterback, but like, I want to talk about this because I want to see who do you think would be the most fun to watch play quarterback out of the 2023 commits? Because I'm like dreaming now of like Dylan Edwards running some zone reads, some running some power read. I'm dreaming of this, man. I'm dreaming of it. So if you maybe a little Charles Jagasa playing some quarterback in the pocket, running power.
You know what? Just from a swag standpoint, I wouldn't put it past Jaden Greathouse or Rico. I wouldn't put it past him.
Jaden Greathouse can definitely throw the football. Like I've never even seen him throw a football, but I can tell you he could definitely throw a football.
He can do everything on the football field. Like, you know what?
He can do everything on the basketball court too, Sean. Like, it's just crazy, man.
I know.
Sean, you know what? Jaden is one of those kids that no matter what sport you're playing a pickup game in, you want him on your team. Like slow pitch softball. Come here, Jaden. Basketball. Come here, Jaden.
Yeah.
You want to go play some horseshoes? Come here, Jaden. Like, doesn't matter, man. Jaden Greathouse is probably just good at everything he does. If we're being honest, like he's one of those overachievers that's just like good at everything. Like,
got a little pop a shot in the basement. Yeah, you're on my team, Jaden. Let's go at it. That's a good question. The better question is, if you had to run Wildcat, which 23 commit would you run it with?
I don't think it's that hard for me. Jeremiah Love.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd have him, and then I'd have Dylan Edwards running the motion across from the slot, so they run like a power read with Jeremiah Love. Yeah, that's my jam. That's my jam. Yeah. Yeah.
We just gave you creative offensive mind right here on the Irish Breakdown.
Hey man, I'm just dreaming. I would also, I mean, hey, put it on the goal line, Sean. Put it on the goal line. Put Charles Jagasaw in to run the power read. Just let him plunge. Yeah, man. Yeah, quarterback sneak with Charles.
Ryan, you mean since your quarterback's not a running option, you would actually run Wildcat on the goal line? Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I said.
No, I'm just saying. I mean,
I'm just kidding.
That's the way I took it. I'm just saying,
Yeah, you're allowed to do something out of your comfort zone at times. It's crazy how that happens. Oh, you know who else could probably throw a football? I just saw his name in the chat. Rico Flores could probably definitely throw a football.
Those are my two. Yeah, Rico and Greathouse. Those are my two.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Next question. We had an NFL question from Antoine Porche Rideau. I hope I pronounced that right. It's probably not, but my apologies, Antoine, if I did not. Question about Chase Claypool. Do you think he needs to be traded, Sean? Does he need to get out of Pittsburgh?
Yeah, if that's the case, all the receivers in Pittsburgh, Pickens, everybody needs to be traded. They need a quarterback, or they just need to be patient and let Pickett become as good as he can become. I mean, coming in with Ben Roethlisberger as your quarterback as a rookie is very beneficial, even with him not being prime Big Ben. It's very beneficial. So,
Kenny Pickett has two touchdowns and 7 interceptions so far in his career, Sean. And he was a kid, and I wasn't a big Kenny Pickett guy NFL draft-wise. He was a kid that was billed as a pro-ready kid. He'll come in and he'll be ready to play. Okay. Sure he will. Sure he will.
He's a running game. Yeah. And this is the thing, Ryan. It's very few guys that don't need a running game to play really well. Like you have to be the best of the best. Like look at Herbert struggling a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's things happen, man. It's the reason why 11 guys take the field together. I don't care how great your quarterback is. You need a little help. It would be nice. And he doesn't have right now. They might have the most underutilized wide receiving core in the NFL, Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They definitely have talent, but no running game.
I know someone just said something about Matt Canada Matt Canada's a problem. He's a problem.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah.
He was a bad OC at LSU, and then all of a sudden he's an OC with Pittsburgh. I know he was like the quarterback coach or something at first, but could have told you Matt Canada was not going to be a good coach.
Yeah, that was a bad hire by my boy Omar Epps, a.k.a. Mike Tomlin. Yeah.
Oh, he does like Omar Epps. That's a good call. That's a good call. Wanted to bang this one out real quick, Sean. Gavin Harden said, and I think Gavin may have messaged me on the board today. Gavin, if someone messaged me the same exact question, so I think it was you. I was actually about to answer like after the show, but question is, has Notre Dame shown any interest in Jack Jacobs, 2023 quarterback from California? Solid frame, mobile, a lot of zip on the arm. Feel like he has a really high ceiling for an uncommitted 3-star. Gavin, not one of the names that's been floated by me. So I don't think Notre Dame's if they've watched him, I don't think that he's a guy that pops for them personally. So he's not a guy that's on Notre Dame's radar at the moment. I'll take a look at him, see how talented he is, but he's just not one of the guys' names that I've seen get thrown out there at this point. So just wanted to hit that one real quick. Coming to the end already, close, Sean. Not a ton of questions left. Robert Bishop said, fair question, boys. Do we lose any recruits if Tommy's fired? We already answered that one a little bit. We talked mostly about wide receivers. Sean, I don't know if you want to add anything to this.
There's no quarterback in the class at this point, so
yeah,
I don't think so.
I think Robert, for me, I think a lot of look, are there kids that commit for coaches specifically, right? Like an offensive coordinator or quarterback coach or whatever it is. Yeah, it happens. It happens for sure. I think though, for me, could there be some unsettledness? Yeah, there could be. But I mean, also in this scenario, I mean, who's the next head offensive coordinator? You know, like I need to know who the next guy is and what the timeline looks like. And there's just a lot of context to this question, right? So in a vacuum, it will hurt some parts of their recruitment, but I don't think it'll be like a killer. But that also depends on, like, Notre Dame can't go out there and just have a terrible offensive coordinator hire after getting rid of Tommy, right? Like that can't be a thing either. So we'll wait and see on that whole situation. We had Archer. Ryan, do you think this is interesting, Sean? I'll let you answer this one first because it's an interesting little scenario that Archer lays out here. He said, Ryan, do you think Adon tweeted out the OSU offer, the Ohio State offer, and then reaffirmed his Notre Dame commitment to try to get perceived win, some momentum back on the trail? Not a bad move on his part, if so.
It has nothing to do with that, in my opinion. I think it's a sign of respect. And when people give you an offer, you publicly acknowledge it and say thank you. And that's what he did. He's being a respectful young man. I think someone put it on the message board that Jackson Arnold talked about showing respect to the Notre Dame staff. You know, just calling them back and responding back to them, even though he's firm in his players to Oklahoma. He's just showing respect. There are plenty of commits that still are committed to programs that put out, man, thank you for this offer from this program. I think he's just showing respect to them. And that's about it.
Yeah.
They're better than me.
Yeah.
They're better than me because once I'm done, I don't even know if I'm picking up phone calls. Like,
some people don't, and some people don't. I mean, Sean, I knew that you would answer the question the same exact way I was going to, right? You said it perfectly. It's a respect thing for Adon Shuler. Like him and his family, they feel blessed for every team that has given them an offer, extended them, every coach that has taken the time. So Archer, I don't think that it's a deep, like, I don't think it's like a psychological thing that he was pulling there, right? Like, I don't think there was anything to that. I just think truly Adon is grateful for it. Really do. And I mean, I think that you heard it in the interview a little bit, right? Like he's a very humble, grounded young man, and he truly just is excited about the next chapter, but he's very grateful for the things that are in front of him too. So I think
there's a reason he got the offer, Ryan.
Yep.
People have been watching him his senior season. 100%. There's a reason he got the offer. So the work is why he's getting the attention, and he knows that. And that's why his ranking will probably continue to go up once analysts continue to watch his senior film. So, yeah, it's much to do about nothing. It happens all the time. We see it on a daily basis on Twitter.
Sure do. Yeah. Twitter's not the real world either. So, yeah, there's a couple questions here about Jaden Greathouse, Sean. This one's from Ben Tarnowski. Said, Texas is starting to go after Greathouse again. Any reason for concern? Ben, I'll say this. Texas never stopped going after Jaden Greathouse. Like, and there's some other schools that have never stopped.
Exactly.
And Jaden is another one of those kids, Sean, that we were just talking about Adon. Jaden's very respectful, right? Like, he will always answer the call of anyone. That's not even just like schools. That's like if I call Jaden and he's available, he'll answer the call, right? Like he's a respectful young man. He'll always answer. So I think that, but again, he is a kid that hasn't been on any visits after he committed. He's continuous to say, I'm good. Like, I'm happy with where I am. We put out a piece like 2 weeks ago where he had a one-on-one interview after the game with who was it? It wasn't, I forget who ran it. Was it Sean Smith that ran that one? No, it was, I can't remember. Anyway, who's that?
I forget. I thought it might have been John Garcia, but
maybe it was John. I can't remember. But either way, we had somebody on tap at the game, and it was Brian Smith. Excuse me, Brian Smith was the one that did the interview. So Brian was live at the Westlake game, and he asked him like, how's everything and all that type of stuff. And he just first thing out of his mind is like, oh, I'm locked in. Like he's just worried about Notre Dame right now. So Ben, I think that people are going to keep trying. schools are going to keep going because the thing about Jaden is that he's always going to answer the call, right? So, like, people are going to keep going at him. But I think that Jaden Greathouse is 100% locked in. I'm not worried about Jaden. So that's where we are with that one.
Yeah.
And then this one, Sean, what are your insight on this one? Tyler Bedwell wanted to know about Jaden Greathouse. Can someone please explain to me how Jaden Greathouse is not a 5-star? He's a record-setting receiver at one of the best high schools in the country in one of the most competitive high school areas.
Politics. You connect the dots to recruiting, websites, the parent company they're connected to, which is more than likely a television network, and then the contracts that the television networks has with certain conferences and kids that are committed to those schools, they get the bumps. I mean, it's really political. Like, if it was just analysis, you would have far more 5-stars than you really have, right? It's a reason why they keep the 5-star to we're not going to have more than 25 to 30 every year, right? But truly, if you really analyze true 5-star characteristics and evaluation, and like how many, that would be great to follow a class for you, Ryan, to follow the 23 class to when they first get to the NFL, and would you still consider them 5-star or higher than did they outperform their rankings coming out of high school? When they become first, second round draft picks or prospects. That'll be interesting because I would venture to say there are more 5-stars in the 23 class than they're getting credit.
I don't disagree. I mean, yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, like you said, Sean, this is a historical quarterback class. Like, I think there's a couple quarterbacks that aren't at that status that you could be like, might be there. They're close. If they're not, they're very, very close. So I can get on that, man. Yeah. Speaking of 2023 class quarterbacks, Jeff Brown just asked, any updates on 2023 quarterback? I know hindsight is 2020, but I hope they never take the approach they did with Dante Moore again. Also, do they have any other safety prospects for 23 if Bowen says goodbye? Jeff, for the latter, I don't think that they're worrying about that at the moment. I think they still feel good about their standing with Peyton Bowen, so I don't think that they have any plan Bs in case something happens. Like, I think that they're going to continue monitoring kids that are rising, all that type of stuff, right? But it's not like because they're scared of Peyton Bowen's going to be out of the class right now. That's not what it is. Any updates on 2023 quarterbacks? Again, Jeff, I said this last recruiting hour, and I think I may have said it in a different show last week, and I just want to reiterate it again. As soon as you all will know, you go to Boards.Irish. As soon as we are able to put it out in the universe, I should say, go to Boards.IrishBreakdown.com, and we'll have some intel on quarterbacks that Notre Dame is targeting. I have seen a list, talked to a couple of them. I know Notre Dame is doing their due diligence on that department, so we'll have an update as soon as we can. We just, again, can't put it out in the universe yet. But if you go to Boards.IrishBreakdown.com, you'll know pretty much before anyone. So, yeah, hit that up. And then, Sean, we just had a couple comments that I want to hit here real quick. Sure. John, the Chris show, I think is how you pronounce. Apologies, John, if I butchered that. Love the interviews. Adon seems like a great student, recruit, and young man. Oscar was really, very well spoken and makes any Notre Dame fan proud of our graduates. 100%, John. Agree with that completely. We had Jason K that just wanted to say, Ryan, Sean, whole IB crew, thanks for the great coverage, interviews, recruiting, teams, team, etc. Absolutely, brother. Appreciate you for stopping in. Last one was from Berkshire, York. Said, good show today, guys. Thank you all so much. So that is going to do it for the mailbag section of this show of the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. Before you leave, do not leave yet. If you hit that like button, you can subscribe to this podcast. 5-star reviews are appreciated on any podcast platform that you frequent. Hit that notification bell if you are on YouTube to let you all know when the next show will be. Tonight's 6 o'clock, we have IB Nation Sports Talk. 8 o'clock will be Upon Further Review to kind of put the bow on the game this past weekend against UNLV. So make sure to tune into those. Hit those subscribe buttons if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform. Because again, when the new shows come out, They will be ready for you all whenever you pop in. So thank you all so much again for joining us today. Thank you to our great guests, Adon Shuler and Mr. Oscar McBride, former Notre Dame tight end, for joining us, former Arizona Cardinal as well. From Sean Davis, I am Ryan Roberts. Thank you all so much for joining the Irish Breakdown podcast on this Notre Dame Recruiting Hour.